This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
Wrong! If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity!
Russ Wakelin. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Sam Stewart and Tim Huckelbery in the third chair.
Hello!
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listener.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of a gunslinger with quick draw, fast shoot, rapid reload, and bullet time abilities, taking a single pot shot at a tin can. Today's edition is brought to you by the Daventry Vaulters. Gamers in the Northamptonshire area of England, come visit the Daventry Vaulters Games Club. Find us at www.meetup.com/Daventry Vaulters. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are, as always, Russ Reichstar Wakelin, and special guests today, the dynamic duo of dice-rolling doppelgangers, Tim Hawkmoon Huckleberry and Sam Spacemaster Stewart of Fantasy Flight Games. Let's begin. Issue number 1. No matter what types of tabletop wargaming we play, it is a near constant that terrain must take part. As Karl von Clausewitz and Sun Tzu are both famous for saying, terrain will shape the battle no matter any other variables. As Clausewitz said, in regard to the importance of terrain in tactical exercise, the relationship between warfare and terrain demands the faculty of quickly and accurately grasping the topography of any area. Question. In any Wargamer's terrain collection, what is the single most important piece to first be established? Eastern Redbud Russ.
Hill.
Black Tupelo Tim.
Jello.
Staghorn Sumac Sam.
Rocks made of crumbled Girl Scout cookies.
Interesting. All of you trying to be witty. I get it. Unfortunately, that still means you're wrong. It's a train. Every table needs a train. Do you people not pay attention? Issue number 2. Air Force Space Command, AFSPC, is a major command of the United States Air Force. The AFSPC is commanded from its headquarters at Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado, from where it supports U.S. military operations worldwide through the use of many different types of satellites, launch vehicles, and now cyber operations. The AFSPC is currently in the process of celebrating its 30th birthday and is an awesome factor in somebody's superhero origin story. Question. In what year did the arcade game Space Command first hit gaming centers across the United States? Roman Romanko Russ.
1984.
Salazin Shapirov Sam.
1979.
Valentina Tereshkova Tim.
1983.
Unfortunately for me, we have a winner. Sam, 1979,
Wow.
still makes the other two wrong. For those of you not following home, however, that is 4 years before the founding of the government's Space Command, posers. Issue number 3. Role-playing games are games in which players assume the roles of characters in a fabricated, often fictional setting. Players act out these roles within a developing narrative, either through literally acting or through a process of structured decision-making or character development. Actions taken within many games succeed or fail according to a formal system of rules and guidelines. Question. What is the RPG designer's favorite euphemism for intimate personal activity? Queasy Quandary Russ.
Balt chicka wow wow.
Tim and Tangle Tim.
Oh, geez. What's the rating for the show again? I'm not sure we can get into that.
We're just going to move on. Self-conscious Sam.
Fluff.
Interesting, and it works on so many levels, but we're going to go with character generation. Come on, guys. You are so awesome. Issue number 4. All role-playing games require some structure through which players and game masters can ascertain whether or not a character is successful in any particular arduous task they may undertake. Whether they're rolling percentile dice and consulting multiple tables or a single 6-sider looking for the old 4+, some structures must be used to see whether or not somebody's cowboy successfully smashes through that window and rolls into the saloon, or bounces off the glass, rolls across the balcony, and falls into the horse trough. Question. On a scale of 1 through 10, with a 10 being equivalent to falling asleep in your cubicle at work and waking up in the green room of Victoria's Secret's Valentine's Day extravaganza, and a 1 being equivalent to a girl on a blind date having listened to the extended annotated pedigree of some Hammerhead's D&D 3.75621 edition fighter thief cleric mage, how fun would a completely realistic system of skill checks be in a modern zombie apocalypse RPG? Steve Reichart Russ.
3.
Bill Sing Sam.
2.
Fabulous Topperween Tim.
4.7.
Once again, Sam is the closest, but you are all wrong. It's 0.5. And the 0.5 is only there because of the laugh you'd get the first time someone else tried to headshot a lurching zombie with a scrounged pistol through 30 feet of fog while running away. After that, it's all downhill. I hope you brought your character sheets. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Conquistador Games, focusing on immersive and thematic games. More details at cqgames.com.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Winged Hussar Publishing, providing books for students of history and history students. wingedhussarpublishing.com. And by Game Salute, publishing awesome tabletop games through the Powered by Game Salute program, supporting independent publishers, stores, and the industry at gamesalute.com. Hello!
Hello!
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to episode 122 of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Sam Stewart.
I'm Tim Huckelbery.
Look at that, Craig.
Now, guys, is the third chair, is that tight with two guys sitting in it?
Right.
It's fine. It's fine. We're cozy over here.
I was going to say 4 butt cheeks, 1 chair. That's a big chair. So,
Well, it's only happened once before. So.
yes, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules over there at Fantasy Flight Games to join us on the show today.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Definitely.
So, Sam and Tim are what we would call bigwigs, head honchos, big falutin RPG guys, or something like
I
that.
prefer the term big kahunas.
Kahunas.
Yes.
Well, at least somebody calls us that.
When you use the plural, it sounds like you're talking about something else.
Right. So, when it comes to RPGs, they know their stuff.
That's right.
Exactly. So on today's show, we're going to be talking now that we have RPG experts
Yeah.
on the show.
Wait. Let me use a buzzword. We're going to leverage them.
Oh, yes, very good. Leverage. Wow. Yes.
Prepare to be leveraged.
We have a segment called the RPG Developer's Lifestyle.
That's right.
I think Craig came up with that.
It should have a bump chicka bam bam soundtrack.
Yes, where we talk about what it's like to design RPGs and stuff.
With these two wild and crazy guys.
Yes, along with their origin stories. And then later we're going to bring back Mulling Mechanics. It's been a little while. And we're going to talk about some of these sort of, go-to mechanics in most RPGs and what we like and don't like or prefer in those various things there.
That's right.
But up first, we have a few things we got to take care of. First, thanks again to everyone who entered our contests last couple episodes. We're taking a little contest break now, but thanks for going through all that, and we'll have another contest coming soon, probably next episode. Let's see. Also, Tim and Sam were kind enough to join us in the Lost Chapters, and we talked about. Anybody remember what we talked about last Lost Chapter?
Donuts.
Lots of
Girl
donuts.
Scout cookies, right?
There were Girl Scout cookies, donuts, and then we had a topic. Anyone? No.
Trains.
Yeah.
Trains.
A train might have been mentioned. We talked about terrain.
Terrain.
That's right.
The plane.
Yes. People have been asking a while now for sort of like a terrain building 101, and that was this episode's job. So if you're interested in that, check out the Lost Chapters. Craig, how do they find out more about the Lost Chapters?
They would go to the D6generation.com, Russ, and they would click on the stack of books on the right.
Indeed, exactly right. We have apps for Android, iOS to get those things easily. Subscription prices are really affordable. Listen to as much as you like. Get into
Russ,
all that stuff.
How much do the apps cost?
Apps are free. 100% free. Yes,
100%
indeed.
free.
Exactly right.
Yes, if we want to sound like we're, multilingual.
Right. And also don't forget, Craig, we got the new game list going on now.
We do.
Go to our website, click the game list, and it'll list every game we've ever reviewed in the show. There's even a few Fantasy Flight game titles in there, guys. Just
One or two.
Yeah, 1 or 2. And it'll list every game we've ever reviewed along with the episode numbers in alphabetical order. So if you're ever wondering, hey, what episode did we review Rune Wars in? Well, there you go. See, this is called pandering. See how I did that? Pandering.
Indeed.
So
I feel pandered.
Maybe X-Wing. Maybe you want to know how we...
Right.
What
When did we review X-Wing? When did we review StarCraft, the board game? Those are all in there,
Yep.
Exactly
Not
right.
only that, but it also has a little blurb by each of us on what we thought, which is, once we did all that, how we found out that I don't hate 4X games as much as I thought.
Exactly. See, that's how that works. So there you go. So, Craig, what's the time now for?
Right now, it's time for Achievements in Gaming.
There you go. And by the way, for our new listeners, that sound you hear? That's not an accident. That is the achievement noise.
That is.
Marking that you did something cool in gaming when we cover this segment.
It would be easier to figure that out if Russ was a little more consistent with the application of the sound effect.
Well, you like it to be, I like to have that realistic Xbox lag feeling, like they're coming in a little late,
Gotcha.
See. And Achievements of Gaming is brought to us today by WWPD.net is sponsoring a worldwide gaming fundraiser to benefit the Wounded Warriors Project and other worldwide veteran organizations on March 30th. So check out vets.wwpd.net to participate and find out where you can help out this great gaming cause.
Awesome cause.
It is an awesome cause. So what have you been playing lately, Tim?
A lot of Relic, actually, which will be coming out soon. Really enjoying that.
Ooh, Relic.
And other than that, not a whole lot. Some Battlestar Galactica and some Elder Sign recently.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. So staying,
ever a classic.
Right, staying in the home stable of games there, I see.
It's one of my favorites. I really enjoy cooperative games, especially when they turn non-cooperative. So.
Oh yeah, that's the nice. You got to have the little traitor twist. I think that adds a lot of enjoyment. Yeah, great.
I love that game.
See, I'm now going to give Tim an achievement. There we go. See how that works. All right.
Now, do that again. I didn't quite hear it.
Right. Shall I
take it? Counts as 2 achievements, right?
Yeah, you owe him one more.
Well played, sir. Well played. There's one more. All right. There we go.
We're not allowed to game the achievements phase? Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. Whatever it takes, Tim.
Meta achievement. What's the meta achievement sound effect?
Just one more achievement. There you go. How about you, Sam? What have you been playing lately?
Well, come as no surprise to you, but I have been playing some Edge of the Empire, running a game for some people.
Oh, nice. That is the Star Wars RPG, of course, you guys have built out over there.
Yep. It's all... it started out as a last-minute playtest and sort of morphed into something more, but actually I managed to wrap up the campaign and didn't kill any of my players, so I don't know if that's an achievement or not.
That's a negative
achievement for the players, maybe.
Yeah, we'll give the players. We'll give the players an achievement there, Sam, for that.
Yeah.
All right. Beyond that, actually, I've been playing a lot of XCOM recently.
Oh, very nice. Good choice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I downloaded the DLC where you get to go into China and take down the alien battleship.
Oh,
nice.
Just
finished that up.
So is the DLC good? Does it add a lot more stuff to the game?
I like it. I thought it was really awesome. New maps and the new character who comes with it is pretty cool too.
Oh, sweet! I'll have to check that out. I've played the full regular game through several times. I liked it. I have not got the DLC yet.
Yep, I think it's worth checking out.
All right, I'll take a look. Good. Let's see. How about you, Craig? What have you been playing?
What am I playing? Well, I played X-Wing last week twice. Love it. We played the bounty hunter mission that comes with Slave 1, and that wasn't so much fun. But the next game we played was straight up fight, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and it totally brought my love back for the game.
Now, wait a second. Now, we got two guys here who work at the company who produces this game.
You telling me I'm not supposed to be honest?
No, I'm just saying. I would hazard to guess that they have played a little. Have you guys played a little X-Wing before?
Just a little.
Yep.
Now, have you played the bounty hunter mission?
I have not.
No, neither have I, actually.
So I was hoping to get some good tactical tips for you, Craig, for next time.
Right.
But
The tactical tip would be to play the side of the bounty hunter. That would be the tactical tip. When the entire rebel side starts the game facing in the wrong direction with a stress token on each one of their things and can't escape, yes, you want to be flying Slave 1.
Okay.
Well, wouldn't you always want to? I mean, come on.
No, I've got to say I would rather fly the Millennium Falcon, which
that would be the other one, yes.
Well, the nice thing about the Falcon is it doesn't matter which direction you're facing.
Ding, 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 ding.
Good point. Yes, indeed.
So the cool thing about the Falcon is A, it doesn't matter what direction you're facing, and B, you can make it really, really, really maneuverable.
Yes.
For very little use, but it's awesome, and it only costs a point. So that's still a great game. Perudo, we had a game of Perudo after we played 2 games of X-Wing. Perudo was kind of like our cleanup game that night. And we had the best come-from-behind win ever with Ian Clark of the Nerd Herders podcast was down to 1 die at one point.
Wow.
And then slowly through guessing exact numbers on the dice as we went around, he kept adding his dice back into his pool until with the last guess he did, he got a die back. Somebody else got kicked out of the game. It was down to him and me. I had not lost a single die in the whole game. So we both went into this last round of 1 against 1 with 5 dice in our cups. Mm-hmm. I knocked his first die out. I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then he killed me. Yeah. Didn't lose a single die for the rest of it. It was
wow. Achievement free. And then
he went from 1 die to 5 and then killed me and ended the game with 4 dice. It was crazy. But that game is still awesome. I played in little Iron Kingdom's role-playing game with Russ.
There you go.
And I learned the dangers of multiclassing still exist, even in a world where everybody is multiclassed.
Yes.
We'll talk about later at some point when we review that game.
That's going to get a review, yeah.
Everybody in that game is basically multiclassed, and I still managed to pick the 2 that you probably don't want to put together.
We'll see. We have plans for that, though. We will get plans for that.
No, there's ways to work it better than I worked it, but still. And then I had my first ever Infinity full-sized game.
Yeah. Oh, and I define full-sized.
Like 300 points aside.
Oh, I don't think I've even played that big. I guess
how many models is that?
Well, I play Ariadna, so my guys are ridiculously cheap. I had 14 models.
That's a lot. Oh, that's way big.
That's way big. Yeah. And wow, I lost 4 of my most important models in my turn 1.
Wow.
It was brutal.
Hello,
First,
Overwatch.
Dave's dice were boiling hot, and I realized that if there's one thing a guy who's really bad at rolling dice like I am should avoid at all cost, it's a game that not only has a target number, but then on top of that target number, you're rolling against the other guy.
Right. Yes,
so the target number is basically floating. So if I can't roll for a target number that doesn't float, and I'm no way I'm moving target.
There you go.
It was just brutal. And then this had never been done to me in any of my little games that I played before, but it's always been something I've been nervous about, and I call it bullet time. And I had my hatred of bullet time justified in that game when one little ninja model, used 5 activations to go tearing all the way from his deployment zone, killing one of my big giant werewolf guys into my backfield and killing 2 of my linked team.
Wow, and you couldn't shoot him, huh?
Turn. I shot him once. I took a wound off. I shot him and he made his armor save. I shot him again and I missed. And I mean, it was just brutal.
Yeah.
And then he ate all your dudes.
And then he ate those dudes. Yeah. Now and then in my turn, my guys shot him and killed him. But it was ugly. Still can't wrap my head around the abstraction that allows in the amount of time that everybody could move 5 feet. That guy moved 30 feet and killed 3 guys.
Yeah, that's a very abstracted thing. It's one of the things I make sense about too. Yeah.
That's why
I think I've seen that horror movie actually.
The Matrix, and I was apparently on the bad guy's side. But anyway, and then I just went on to lose miserably and horribly, and I was like, I don't know if I like this game anymore. But the models are still awesome, and I'll be playing it again.
Now, where did you?
I've been playing. Russ, what about you?
Well,
You've got your usual giant chunk of games.
Well, before you go there, where did you play that game?
Oh, I played that game at Myriad Games, Manchester.
No achievement.
On behalf of friendly professional gaming stores everywhere, Myriad Games is the official game store of the D6 generation.
Yeah, and don't miss out on their new Staten Island store run by Zev from Z-Man Games.
That's absolutely correct.
There you
Paul
go.
and Zev from Z-Man Games.
There you go.
That is the first in a family of Myriad Games locations, which, yes, my friends, means that his attempt to take over the world has begun.
There you go. Let's see. Well, what have I been playing? I did play also the Iron Kingdoms RPG. It's the first time we did anything with that, and I was very excited about working on it for a while. Also, my first GMing in a long, long time, so I was very rusty and a little nervous, but it seemed like everybody had a good time. So
very well.
Thank you.
Right
So
on.
I'm looking forward to another one of those. And then also,
before you go on,
Yeah.
did you kill any of your players?
No. In fact, I barely wounded them. I was because whenever you start, I think we'll talk about this in Mulling Mechics a little bit. Whenever you're starting out, not only was I GMing for the first time in like at least 10 years, but also it was the first time with a new system. So I was kind of nervous about, and I figured if I was going to err, I wanted to err on the side of the players just walking all over the monsters as opposed to, the other way around. So I kind of did everything they recommended for a scenario, and then took a little bit off just to kind of be safe.
You're saying my first Death Wash Death session was a mistake when I did a TPK.
No.
No, I think that pretty much sets the tone for Death Watch.
Right.
When you go charging into a warehouse with a hive tyrant in it.
Well, yeah, but I also had the alternate agenda of actually wanting to have another session. So it's kind of but yeah. So that's we got through that. But I definitely feel like I need to practice on the balancing more because I think it worked well, but I think I definitely had it a little bit easy for the players. So I want to give it a little more depth there. Then we played. So Craig, in the last You Ever Noticed, Craig mentioned that his flight got left early, and the original session we'd planned for Iron Kingdom RPG we had to cancel. So that original session, though, my brother and our friend Joe and I were like, well, let's do something else. So we played 3-player fleet captains, which I finally got to do because I got the Romulan expansion now. So now you can play a 3-player variant with the Klingons, the Romulans, and of course the Federation, and that is just a lot of fun. And we all had a great time with that. So I really like that game still. Now my daughters, this is funny. So I'd forgotten about this. I got the game Once Upon a Time, no relation to the TV show. It's a game. It's a card game, and it's basically a storytelling card game. So what you do is each player gets dealt a hand of cards, and there's things on them like a castle and a prince and a troll. And what you do is the first player starts telling a story, and they're trying to include things in the story they're telling that are cards in their hand. If they do that, they put a card down. So they might say, a prince, puts the prince card down, lived in a castle, puts the castle card down. And then he was on the way to see a troll, and was on the road. And if you say road, and I've got a road, I can steal and say, oh, I put a road down, I've got a road. And then I can start telling the story. And the goal is to keep telling a story and go around the table until someone's out of all their cards. And if you get stuck mentally and can't say anything, the other players call you out. You got to stop. You draw another card, and play continues to the player to your left. And then there's interrupt cards and all kinds of fun things like that. So I bought this to my girls a long time ago, and I was like, I'm going to try this out. And I'd forgotten about it. And then my oldest daughter's like, Dad, we were at Girl Scout camp, and we had this great game called Once Upon a Time. I know that game. So I brought it out. We played it 3 times, and they had a blast. So we played that. It's a great game with your kids. But I think if we go to the adults with a little bit of some drinks, a little raunchy, it'd be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Also, playing more Hordes with my oldest daughter. She's still having a great time with that. And I finally beat her in combat. I finally felt confident enough to actually go full bore at her, and I barely won. She had a nice assassination run, almost got my caster, which is great. Now, my youngest has decided she's not as into painting as my oldest. My oldest has always been the artsy one. My youngest is like, I don't know. And so she likes the miniature idea, but she doesn't want to paint them. And she finally saw Dungeon Command, and she's like, I want to try this because they all come painted. So I played Dungeon Command with her. She's 9, and she loved it. So Dungeon Command is a fun little game for younger players. And then let's see. Also, and now I get to the Fantasy Flight games. I played X-Wing. I played 2 X-Wing sessions. I played one with our friend Christian. I played the Smuggler mission. I liked the Smuggler mission a lot. I thought it was pretty well balanced.
Now, don't say that like that's the Bounty Hunter mission, because they're 2 totally different missions.
Yeah, it is. So when you buy the Millennium Falcon, you get the Smuggler mission in the book, and when you buy the Slave 1, you get the Bounty Hunter mission.
Slave 1.
Right.
It's just Slave 1 for the love of Lucas.
Fine. Anyway, so so I said the Serenity too. I got so many emails about that. So anyway, so the mission's great. I really liked how it worked. It was a great time. I love just it's a great job with the mechanics for handling the larger ships. They're awesome. And then I played my friend Ryan. He had a fan-made mission that involved the Imperial shuttle. He had a little micro machine Imperial shuttle that looked almost the right scale. So we played that, and that was a lot of fun too. Perfect. So we had a great time with that. Then also played Descent 2. My Descent 2 campaign is still going on, and I have to say I have this little I had to change my image. So we had this little Google group we use to communicate amongst the 5 players when we're going to play next. And I had this really cool evil overlord picture with flaming red eyes. Well, it's now been through the interlude of Act 1. We're all the way through the interlude now, and I, the Overlord, have not won a single event. So I felt compelled to change my Overlord picture from the evil Overlord with flaming eyes to Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. So that is now and it says your Overlord level is now Doofenshmirtz. So that's where I am. Still having a blast, even though I'm losing every time. I cannot wait to get that to delve into the Act 2 now and hope to get some wins here because I definitely need them. And then finally, so StarCraft: Heart of the Swarm came out this week.
Oh yeah.
And so bought the game, but when we bought the game, we realized that Blizzard, everybody's doing this now. Really, the CD has nothing on it. Okay, the CD just has the installer, and then it downloads it from whatever the website is, and it takes like 5 hours to download this thing. So I know what I'm going to do. Tuesdays are gaming night, so I brought my laptop to gaming night. I turned on the laptop, let it start installing, and while it's installing, I broke out StarCraft the board game. And we played a 5-player StarCraft board game while we waited for StarCraft to install, which was very meta. And
Well done.
had a blast. That's one of my favorite games. I love that game. I just love it. We had a great time, and we definitely every time we play that game, I only play it like once every few months, and we always say we got to play it more often because you really want a group that knows it well because then you can really get into it. But that's just a great game. So
Yeah, absolutely.
whew, that was all my board gaming, Craig. All of it.
So what did you do the next day?
So yeah, that was my first day. Oh, so what about modeling, Craig? You done any modeling lately?
Well, I haven't had a lot of free time, but I've done what I could and fit it into the nooks and crannies of my schedule, which means that our friends Will and Dave are maybe sometimes on again, off again. Don't know for sure if they're going to be working together, but each one of them got a laser cutter. and they don't know if they're going to work together as a team and try to do a little business that way or do. But anyway, they designed these awesome sci-fi crates for minis game, mainly for Infinity, but it could work with any sci-fi game. And I put together 6 of them. They made 6 of them for me, and they even have my name on the side, so it's like it says Gallant Tech or Gal Tech on them and everything, so it's kind of cool. So I put those together and I painted them up 2 different colors and I dry brushed them and I distressed them, and that they look really neat now. And they cover a lot of space on the board with just these 6 little things, so that was cool. And I wanted to do that because they gave them to me, and I wanted to make sure I got them painted so that they could have pictures of them. And then during Russ's Iron Kingdoms game, he needed a barn.
I did.
I have an entire Wild West city, as most of you know.
Yes.
Called what is it called? Brimstone.
Yep.
And it has over 15 buildings in this place. One thing I don't have,
A barn.
barn.
See, I looked at his collection. I'm like, what does he not have yet?
So I ordered these MDF buildings literally 2 years ago. I don't even know who I ordered them from now. They've been moved from box to box so much that the instructions and the mailing label is gone. But one of them was a barn. So during the session before the battle that he needed the barn, I built the barn for him. And I had it glued and I had it all like set up over on the side so it would dry. And then I painted it over the next 2 days. So I now have a nice, fully made painted barn.
Awesome.
So,
Hey, and I have
that's
good news. Good news on the barn front. No more encounters will be in barns for the rest of the campaign.
We got there and there was a giant hole blasted in the side of the barn. I was like, "Dude, you should have told me that, Russ. I could have just broken my model."
No, I need a fishing village for next time.
Fishing village.
Fishing village. Yeah.
I don't know. I like the literally someone being able to like hit the big side of a barn. So obviously that works
Right.
out well.
It does.
Yep.
And I could barely, like we said earlier when we were talking about multi-classing, I can barely hit the broadside of a barn.
Nice.
So it was good to have one.
There you go.
Well, what class are you playing anyway?
I am playing a Warcaster Duelist.
Yes.
I need to put lots of points in smarts and spellcasting, but I also need to put lots of smarts in physical stuff. And so, of course, you don't have double the amount of points that so there you go.
Right.
Oh, come on. Ashlyn does it. How hard can it be?
Exactly. Well, I'm a little bit younger than she is.
What about?
So it's basically that fighter, magic user, multi-class conundrum from way back when.
It's a
But
classic.
anyway, so that's me. That's what I've done.
Tim, you done any modeling at all lately?
Not so much, I'm afraid. I have been working. I got a shipment in from Victoria Miniatures.
Nice.
And working on melding in some of the fantastic models and bits that they do with my existing Gene Stealer Cult Army.
Oh, nice.
And converting some Beastmen to work as mercenaries in that as well. And just digging in a lot of old models. I've got some plastic squats and some other stuff I'm working up into little 10-man mercenary units for it. And then also I got to say, the most I've had recently is painting up some of the busts that come with the Relic game.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Having a blast with that. Several of us have some painted on our desk at work, and they look cool.
They are cool looking bits. They are definitely cool looking bits. Very good. How about you, Sam? What have you been painting?
Well, my most recent project has been getting a unit of Dark Eldar Scourges ready for a 40K tournament this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Some scourges.
Well, I loved Scourges up until the point where I had to paint all those feathered wings. Oh, my God.
Ouch.
A lot of feathers.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And, of course, I I decided to do the dumb thing and be like, dry brushing? Who needs dry brushing? I can detail these individually.
Right. Yeah, dry brushing looks a little good after you've done the 10th model, doesn't it?
You start to wonder. You're like, it's kind of dark in that hall. Who's going to notice?
That's right. Just put the dry brush ones in the back, and you put like they used to do that in painting judging in the fantasy tournaments. You put the painted ones in the front rank, and then all the dry brush ones in the back ranks.
Oh, definitely. Tim just finished. Other Tim, not Huckelbery. There's another Tim we work with. He just finished up an army for Warhammer Fantasy, and only the guys in his front rank actually have eyeballs.
There you go. Yeah, why bother? I don't see them anyway. They're the first one. You pull them from the back anyway when they die. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Cool. Let's see. I did a little bit. I did. I flocked the river. I think I may have mentioned that last time. And also, I've been painting. So what I try to do now is, what we've been doing with our Descent 2 campaign, which has been kind of fun, is whenever we end a session, I always make the heroes pick, because they always win. So I make them, they get to pick the next adventure. So I always make them pick it before we leave for the day. So I have an entire week to A, go through my 80-plus monster choices and figure out what I'm going to take for the next scenario. But B, then I try to paint up at least one of the monster groups, just so over time, theoretically, my guys will all get painted. So last time I did kobolds, which is a pretty big monster group, actually. So they're all done now. So I've been slowly painting my Descent set. It's going to be a while, but I'm getting there.
I like it.
So that's
a good way to do it, though.
So last is our other category, guys. So this is the section we talk about geeky movies or comics or books or whatever other geeky nonsense we've been doing lately since last time. So, Craig, why don't you show them how it's done? So what have you been doing, Craig?
Geeky nonsense.
Yes.
Well, I have been listening to Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey, which is a pen name for two guys, and I learned that today.
I just started that one, too.
And I got to say, as much as I was sort of losing my taste for the Prophet Apotheosis series that we were all listening to earlier, I really did as soon as I started listening to Caliban's War, because thank God, here are some real characters again.
Yeah. You mean you like Caliban's War?
I love it.
Yeah,
Three-dimensional characters.
Yep.
These guys and they're changing, which is awesome, of course. You want to have characters that develop and change over time. And they're changing even from the last book, and they know they're changing, and they can feel it, and they know that they're in this real crucible of pressure. Just absolutely great. The story is just developing. It's cooler and cooler. It's totally way out in left field. Like I said, the characters are awesome. Driving into work this morning, we had a little moment in the book where something really dramatic happened, and I swear I got choked up. And that never happened in those other books.
But doesn't it feel like Sedition Wars, the book, a little bit? It does to me. Well, at least in the beginning, because they have the power armor, and there's like strange alien things coming at them, and all kinds of morphing going on.
Actually, it does. And then it actually gets even more that way later on when they're fleeing from Ganymede. But
Don't spoilers. Come on, I'm in like the first chapter, dude.
There's no spoilers. I mean, you don't know what the situation is. Why are they running from Ganymede? You don't know.
Stop it.
Right now, you probably know they're going towards Ganymede, is all you know.
You're going to reveal more.
I'm not going to reveal anything. Okay. Because some fool offered me the opportunity to write for some Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. Who would do that?
Who would do that?
I have been doing an awful lot of research, and this is heavy, weighty research that takes a long time, and I don't enjoy it at all. I had to read Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina over again. I had to read Tales of the Bounty Hunters over again, Tales from Jabba's Palace. And for those of you who don't know what these are, they did they're anthologies, and they're really cool. I mean, they're some of the stories are good, some of the stories not so good. Space vampires, I want to kick that guy in the anyway. But it's very cool because each book takes just a moment from Star Wars, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, and basically every one of the short stories in that anthology gives you a different perspective of that one little moment in the movie. So, of course, the Mos Eisley Cantina stories, all of those characters and stories end up intersecting with the Cantina. Tales of the Bounty Hunters are all of the bounty hunters that are on the... oh my God. I've been wondering how I was going to learn this for a while. And Sam, you're going to teach me.
Here we go.
How do you pronounce Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer?
Oh, well, we actually had a long discussion in the office about this.
Yes, we did, actually.
Yes.
I think I'm still falling down on Executor.
I think that was the consensus.
Because executor's not really a word.
Yeah, I think executor sounds right too.
I think it's executor. Okay.
We literally were discussing it, and then I think the cubicle pit next to us got into it as well. And then people would just be wanderingly coming by, and of course, because how to pronounce something, everybody had opinion on.
Right. Sure.
So it's the important things like that basically drove the company to a halt for several hours.
Exactly.
And that's what puts jobs in perspective, really. I spent a day arguing over what are the social and civic responsibilities we need to instill in our students today. You guys got to argue over the executor versus executor.
It's funny because I'll date myself long ago, before a lot of companies had toll-free numbers or anything like that. And I was with 40K player. I remember when GW, Games Workshop, set up the toll-free mail order line, and I was working customer service, people would call up purely just to ask how to pronounce things.
Yeah.
Because every regional area has it Tyrannid or is it Tyrannid? How do you pronounce that weird Tzenching? And we got more calls about that than anything.
That's awesome. And I know some of the local guys used to call you guys for rules questions, but I never thought of it calling you for pronunciations.
Well, that was actually fun. We got rules questions, a lot of modeling questions too. Like how should I paint this, or what's a good way to do that?
That's
cool. So it was fun just to chat about stuff like that, just to get wildly off subject here.
Yeah, it's a good job. Well, anyway, okay. So so the Tales of the Bounty Hunter takes the moment where all the bounty hunters are on the Executor. And then Tales from Jabba's Palace, obviously, all of those stories intersect at the at Jabba's Palace. Oh, there you go. So what's that?
Oh, I was going to say, and I like how you're reading those stories, and you're like, and like 2/3 of you are going to end up on that sail barge, and that's just going to suck.
Although some of those writers have come up with very intriguing ways for people to survive that giant nuclear explosion.
Cleverer than fight my way out of the Sarlacc pit with my backpack missile.
Although that is in that story is in that that anthology. So I've also, of course, watched all 3 of the original Star Wars movies, and I got wicked excited when I found my my collection. I was like, oh my God, I think these are pre-edit. No, they're not. I was like, oh, there's the lame CGI Jabba, which means that Greedo's going to shoot first. Okay.
Unless they're VHS, they're not.
Or Laserdisc.
Yeah, or Laserdisc, right.
I have VHS, and we didn't have a VHS set up, but we do now. So I'll have to go back and do that.
There you go.
I actually begged my family for a copy of the DVDs when they released the classic plus new versions, and they managed to find them used on eBay.
Oh, wow.
Nice. There you go. Talk about rare.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also watching the Clone Wars animated series, again, for research. Expensive research.
That just got canceled, actually. It's a sad thing.
Hey, let's not bring me down,
All
okay?
right.
We've got 5 seasons to get through, though.
Yeah, you got plenty to watch.
I know. I was on episode 2 of season 1 when my friend Pete, who cannot sit down in front of any sort of entertainment and not talk, but, how about that cliffhanger at the end of the season 1, episode 2? Oh, I'm talking about season 5, though. What does that make it better?
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying those, which I knew I would. And then just writing lots and lots. And I'm telling you, every one of these stretch goals that Wild West Exodus game hits is another big giant chunk of writing. So it's just been writing, and Star Wars, and then writing, and then more Star Wars. So I've been enjoying myself immensely going back and forth between sci-fi, Wild West creepiness, and Star Wars. So that's me. That's all I got.
Good.
All right. How about Tim? Any books or anything?
Unfortunately, well, the books right now I've been reading are tremendously non-geeky. I've somehow got on a kick for books about the Iraq War.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm working my way through State of Denial right now and Hubris, and I finished Imperial Life in the Emerald City, which are all great books. Not very geeky, though.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have one geeky thing that I actually did yesterday.
What's that?
Which was contribute to the Veronica Mars Kickstarter project.
Oh, there you go.
I'm not sure when this will come out, but as of right now, it's over $3 million in less than 2 days.
Wow.
Right.
Which is awesome. I'm actually looking forward to something that won't. Right now, it's sad because I'm really looking forward to all these great films that are coming out this summer. Yeah. We were all just watching the Kick-Ass 2 trailer actually yesterday. So now I'm actually looking forward to something that won't come out for another 2 years. So
That's exciting. That's pretty. I saw a lot of brown coats retweeting that and saying, "Come on, Joss Whedon."
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
I love Firefly. I love Serenity, but at this point, Avengers 2.
Yeah, right. Stay focused, Joss. Stay focused.
Or Cabin in the Woods 2. I'd go for that as well.
Yeah, I heard that was good.
How could they? Wait, are we allowed to spoil the end to that movie?
No, I haven't seen it. I've not seen it. No.
Oh!
You may not spoil it.
Okay, cover your ears and we'll talk for 10 minutes.
Oh, it's another lost chapter.
We'll send you an email that it's okay to listen. How about that?
No. It's all right.
The other thing I'm honestly really looking forward to is new season of Doctor Who.
Oh, yes. Very much so. Yeah, it looks awesome. Great. How about you, Sam?
Well, let's see. I got into this kick of I read all the Dresden Files books back in the day, checking them out of the library, and then for some reason was like, you know what? Those are so awesome. Well, I know what reason, because they're so awesome. But they're so awesome that I just need to buy them. So I've been reading them again one by one and buying each one in turn. So that's what I've been reading recently. That and the occasional Star Wars book, but like Craig said, it's only for research purposes.
Only for research.
Staying frosty. Good.
Let's see. TV-wise, I haven't been watching anything super interesting recently, except I'm also off again, on again on the Clone Wars. I'm halfway through season 3 at this point, so listen, Craig, if you think the cliffhanger for at the end of season 5 is bad, just wait till you get to the end of season 1. You're going to love it.
Okay, good. I still got a ways to go.
No, but I got to admit, I agree with you. I actually really like how the episodes are turning out, and honestly, I think some of the episodes in season 1 are the weakest in the bunch. I think they only get better from where you are now. So,
because I'm liking where I am. I love the droids.
Yeah, the droids are awesome.
Comic relief for the droid. Oh no, I am not a good shot. I blame programming.
Nice. All right, good stuff. Well, let's see. For me, normally I put video games down here. I know, Sam, you snuck one up earlier, which is great. It is definitely March. I think I mentioned this last episode. March is, I don't know what happened. March is like video game marathon month this March, because Tomb Raider just came out, and I liked it so much I had to update my blog about it. The first Tomb Raider I really, really liked. It was groundbreaking. Since then, the Tomb Raiders have been sort of eh. This new reboot of Lara Croft, though, in Tomb Raider is fantastic.
Is it?
Oh, yes. Very, very good. Really extremely immersive. And I have to say the camera work is just so phenomenal. Like, not just like the cutscenes. I mean, like when she's in a cave, the camera comes in really, really tight. And so you feel like claustrophobia. And then when she's on a cliff, the camera pans way out and you just feel like you're hanging out in the middle of nowhere. And they just do a really good job of that. The storytelling is fantastic. The characters are great. The whole premise is she's basically on an island, like if you've been watching Arrow, you know, the island he's on, which is evil island of evil, that you basically or Lost.
But you become a superhero going there.
Well, basically that's what happens because in this one she starts out as just an archaeologist. She's not a badass. She's very, you know, just an innocent person out there trying to survive. And she goes from barely being able to fight like one person. As you progress through the game, she levels up, she gets her skills, it's a very RPG feeling, and all of a sudden by the end, she's like, bring it, killing like 50 guys. It's just awesome. It's really, really, really well done. I can't get it more excited about it. It's a really great game. So I cranked you that because my wife was at South by Southwest for the weekend. So I was like, well, she was gone. When the kids went to bed, I was just like, 17 hours of the weekend were lost. I played Tomb Raider from pretty much dusk to dawn when I went taking care of the kids. It was awesome. So I got that done just in time for StarCraft, which I talked a little about. Heart of the Swarm is also great. And Tim, you'll like this because, so I don't know if you've played a lot of StarCraft. But in the first, when they redid StarCraft, so in StarCraft 2, the very first game in the series, you play the humans, right? Jim Raynor. Well, in Heart of the Swarm now, you're playing the Queen of Blades, who is the head of the Zerg, which are also known as Tyranids, and they did a fantastic job. I was really curious how they can do this because you're playing the Queen of the Blades. So you're all the people who work with you and all the people who and you can morph, you can like research and come up with new mutations for your bugs. You can morph her, and all these things happen. And all the characters, they really start adding some interesting characters to the other bugs. And it's really sort of interesting, and you really get into it. And I'm really impressed with how they handled and put that personality on this sort of very, very alien race. It's really cool.
I'm really curious how, and I mean, don't spoil it, but I'm super curious how they progress with Heart of the Swarm, considering how the first one ended. Yeah,
it's great. It picks up exactly where the first one ends, and then it makes sense. I mean, I know some people complained about how cliche a lot of the one-liners are and stuff in both games. It's obviously it's a beer and pretzels kind of movie. It's not like it's not a deep film, but I like it. I like how it happened. I like what happened with Jim in the last one and her, and I like how the second one picks up and makes total sense with what's going on. I don't want to spoil it, but right from the beginning, you'll get it all figured out. Like in the first, as soon as you get past sort of the tutorial part and you're into where you pick worlds and go to stuff, you're immediately like, oh, I get where they're going to go with this. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So it's fun. Definitely worth checking out. And as Craig mentioned, I just finished Apotheosis, the final book finished Apotheosis series, that hero series, and we're going to do I think we need another lost chapter on this, Craig, about that one. But you don't know.
It rises to that level.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't. But I thought the ending was okay. Into Caliban's War now, really enjoying Caliban's War, and it's just like you said, Craig. As soon as I get back into real characters again, I was like, this is nice. And so I've been listening on Audible. Craig, have you noticed they just updated the Audible app? I don't know if you noticed this. It is fantastic. Oh, and Dan asked, so we talked about our friends at Audible, and the deal is, don't forget, if you want to listen to books, the best way you can do it is on Audible. Go to the d6generation.com, click the Audible ad on the right-hand side. It'll tell you exactly how to get started. You get a free month with Audible, and you get a free credit, which is for a book, any book you want. But the coolest thing about them is they just relaunched a brand new app, very easy to use, but they had this new thing. Dan was asking, hey, if you listen to it on your iPhone or your Android phone, and then you go to listen to it on the PC, does it remember where you are? And yes, it does, but they have this new thing now, Craig, called WhisperSync. And WhisperSync...
That's from Amazon.
Yes, exactly, because Audible's an Amazon company.
Yep.
And what happens with WhisperSync is you can listen to a book on Audible, and then you can pick up your Kindle, and the text version picks up where you left off on the audiobook.
Yeah.
Well, that's cute.
So you can read in your bed your Kindle, and then when you're done, you put it down, and you're driving to work in the morning, you turn your Audible app back on, and it picks up right where your book left off on your Kindle.
That's neat.
The Kindles have had WhisperSync for a while. It's awesome that they've brought it up to the audiobooks.
Yeah, pretty exciting. So that's pretty cool. And one more geeky thing I did, I saw Jack the Giant Slayer. Now, has anybody seen this film besides me?
Nope.
Well, the title is kind of a spoiler.
Yeah,
I
so
guess,
spoiler
I'm not
alert.
sure.
There are magic beans and there are giants. Just there is a so my whole family went. It was an interesting, fun ride, but here's the problem with this movie. So Jack is a very dull character. There it is. Now, the good news is that all of his entourage in the first part of the film, where he's going up to discover the giants and the whole beanstalk climbing scene, that whole thing, those sidekicks with him are great. So, but after the first half of the film, all those sidekicks don't necessarily die. They're just not featured anymore. And as soon as they leave, the film gets very dull again, except for the effects. Yeah, they didn't have a really good... I wish those other characters stayed. They were more interesting than Jack was, unfortunately. But it was all right. It was fun. The fight scenes were awesome. The effects were really cool, and the giants were pretty neat. And the whole army of giants attacking. And it's the first movie I've ever really seen where giants don't ponder slowly along. They actually if you could run like a human, you were the size of a giant, you could cover a lot of ground pretty quick. And they do, which is pretty awesome.
Well, that's totally fair. Yeah, I heard the same thing about the other movie that came out that I was kind of interested in seeing, the Great and Powerful Oz.
I've not seen that. I want to see that. I have not seen it yet, though.
Yeah, I heard it was. I heard it was a very pretty movie, very awesome. And if the guy playing Oz was a little bit more interesting, it would have been a better movie.
Yeah,
which isn't too bad. Which just means I'll have to wait for Pacific Rim to come out in May.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, this summer, or I guess even starting in May or spring.
Or I guess it's June
fantastic. Now. Yeah, some great films coming out.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah. Heck
yes.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
Oh, well, Iron Man
Oh,
3.
goodness, yes.
Oh, yes. There's so many good movies.
Iron Man 3, man, that
yeah.
extended preview.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's better than half the movies that are out right now.
I know.
Yep.
All looks good. I'm a little nervous about Superman. I'm not going to lie. That doesn't look so.
Yeah.
I'm a little
Yeah,
nervous.
I feel the same way. I mean, it went in with high hopes on the last one, and it just didn't leave a good feeling.
Yeah, we'll see.
But this looks good. This looks good. I'm
It could be good.
Well,
yeah.
fingers crossed.
Really hope so.
Fingers crossed. Well, is that achievements?
That is achievements.
This is the D6 Dice Demon, and when I'm not tormenting souls in Hades, I'm listening to the D6 generation. Shouldn't you?
The D6
D6
generation.
Dice are our vice.
Oh, you know what that wolf means. That means the wolf pack is coming. That means that it's time to talk about our friends at Lone Wolf Development, makers of some of the best software on the planet. And we are so excited to see that RealmWorks got fully funded, went over the goal by $70,000. They did $170,000. It's fantastic. That is awesome. That means that not only is RealmWorks coming, and coming soon, they just sent another update today because I'm a backer because I got to get my RealmWorks. I love it. I was using it for our Iron Kingdoms RPG, Craig, and it was fantastic.
Awesome.
Yep, I was in one of the early beta folks because, of the show and everything. We got a great chance to play with it. I love it. I can't wait for the full version. I can't wait for all the cloud support. I was just thinking about this, Craig. I was like, man, I went to Craig's house to play my Iron Kingdoms RPG, and I had to lug my massive laptop over there. I have one of these huge, it's barely called a laptop. It's this big, heavy thing. I could do my programming on and everything. It's an awesome machine, but it's so heavy. And I'm like, if they had the cloud, I'd go to Craig's workstation, his house, and all my stuff would be right there. Boom. It's coming soon. It's going to be awesome. But you know what? They do more than just RealmWorks. Of course, they've got Hero Lab. They've got Army Builder. Craig, what's the hotness of Army Builder? What's that about?
Well, the hotness in Army Builder would be the fact that I don't know, your notes here suck. So thank you for throwing that to me.
I just was asking you to tell. I mean, you use Army Builder, right?
I love Army Builder.
Why do you like about it?
Why would you say what's the new hotness with Army Builder?
Well, what is the hot? What makes it hot?
What makes it hot is the crazy ability to constantly make up different versions of your army no matter what's going on. And it's like in the amount of time you could try to pencil and pen or erase and scratch out or maybe even carve into a stone tablet an army list for just about any army you could name. With Army Builder, you can make 10 or 11 or 20 or 30 of them. And that actually makes the army building as much fun as playing the game itself.
Right, that just like we hear, we have no net. There's no script. We don't know what the heck we're doing. That's how this rolls. And you can tell.
Are we
it shows. And you know what else great too? Another great tool is Hero Lab, which by the way fully integrates with RealmWorks. Hero Lab lets you crank out characters for your favorite game systems, including Pathfinder, which is awesome. And they just cranked out the Tomb of Horrors update now in Pathfinder as well. So all the new characters and all the stuff's in there is built in there now. They're also going to have a bunch of the new modules coming out in RealmWorks. It's just crazy talk. The amount of support.
Now, Russ, what do you think about Colin's favorite food?
Colin's favorite food?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
What is his favorite food?
Oh, that's not on your bullet? Boom! Do ya? Right there in your face.
I was going to guess haggis. That's what I was going with.
That would be stereotyping.
But is it right?
I don't know.
So, Colin, email it to us and tell us if your favorite food is indeed haggis. There you have it. So check them out.
As a stereotyping scenario is what I'm calling that.
Well, I just had corned beef and cabbage this weekend. Just saying.
As I've been having corned beef and cabbage every day since Saturday.
You are a walking stereotype.
Yeah.
But if you want to see more gaming that has nothing to do with walking stereotypes, head on over to wolflayer.com and check out all their fantastic software.
What about Twitter, though?
Or Twitter.
or at Lone Wolf Devel.
Or Facebook. Any of those fine places. Look for the wolf. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
And now, what's in the news? With a shout out, WWPD.net is sponsoring a worldwide gaming fundraiser to benefit the Wounded Warriors Project and other worldwide veterans organizations on March 30th. Please check out vets.wwpd.net to participate in a great day of gaming for a great cause. That sounds fantastic. And now the news. Lots of Fantasy Flight game news this week or month or whatever, so let's get right to it. First of all, Fantasy Flight Games has finally announced a Descent 2 dice pack. Descent players have been clamoring for the ability to add more dice because that definitely slows it down without those babies. If you'd like to buy a pack of Descent 2 dice, they're now available. Check out fantasyflightgames.com for that. Also, Dust Warfare aircraft books now out on the Fantasy Flight Games. They're previewing that book now. Check that out as well. Let's see. Also, a Netrunner expansion's been announced. If you're a Netrunner fan, you want to check that out also. And this is sort of interesting. Fantasy Flight Games has licensed the rules system for X-Wing to, guess who? This is sort of a match made in who knows what here. They're licensing the rules from X-Wing over to our friends at WizKids for the Star Trek license. And WizKids has announced a brand new Star Trek product called Attack Wing. Now, from what the pictures we've been able to gather is it's going to use the X-Wing mechanics. They've licensed them, so it's exactly the same. Little dials where you pick your maneuver, little templates that maneuver the ships, and they're going to take the sculpts from the Fleet Commander game, put them on new bases that are going to look just like the X-Wing bases, and have ships on them, and you have different maneuvers and different cards for your captains and everything else, just like X-Wing, but with Star Trek ships. Sounds interesting. It remains to be seen if a game designed for fighter combat will translate well into capital ship combat, but it still should be pretty interesting and very exciting for Star Trek fans. And this could be called Attack Wing, by the way. Attack Wing. Also from Fantasy Flight, they've announced Planet Steam, which looks to be a repackaging of the original old giant coffin box Planet Steam game in a little easier to get, a little more accessible form factor as well. So if you're a planet of steampunk, planet domination, check that out also. Another announcement. Let's see, Mage Wars. Our friends at Mage Wars have announced a new product, Allegiance of Blood. So if you're a Mage Wars fan, I'm just going to go through so many announcements this week. Let's see. Also, Firestorm Planetfall. This is the quick combat set for Firestorm. This is planet-side Firestorm stuff. So now you're like talking 15 millimeter combat on the ground with Firestorm Armada factions from Spartan Games. So check that out on their website also. That looks pretty crazy. Let's see. Also Privateer Press is just announced. Let's see. A little article on Beasts of War. Privateer Press has announced that they've got an agreement with Q Workshop, makers of some really fancy dice, for a new official Privateer Press faction dice for all the Hordes and War Machine factions. So that's pretty exciting. If you are a fan of that, head over to Beasts of War to check that. The pictures. They have some great pictures of all the faction dice over there. They're very busy, but they also look pretty cool. Kind of Q Workshop standard thing, really. Also, let's see. Galaxy Trucker iOS has been announced. They're getting very, very close. Some screenshots are available as well for that over on PocketTactics.com, which is pretty cool. And speaking of mobile gaming, 40K mobile gaming license has been announced as well. This is pretty exciting news. So the folks who make the great iPad app Battle Academy, which is a really cool tactical World War II game, have announced that they have the license agreement with Games Workshop for the Warhammer 40,000 license. That is very exciting news. So if you're a fan of tactical combat and Warhammer 40,000, come into an iOS device near you. Let's see. Also, speaking of Games Workshop, let's just talk more of Fantasy Flight. Fantasy Flight's also announced that Relic will be releasing this week as well. So if you are a fan of Talisman and have always wished that it was themed in the sci-fi future of Warhammer 40,000, well, that'll be in store shelves soon. And finally, Wakeland wanted to let everybody know, yes, please tell everyone. If you happen to be attending PAX East this weekend, coming weekend here, and you happen to have nothing to do Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, you're just sitting around going, wish I had a panel to watch, head on over to the board game. It's actually, what is it titled, Wakeland? It's a long title. I think it's something about video game design influence on board games. Jeff Engelstein will be there. Colby Dow from Plaid Hat Games will be there. There's some great writers going to be there. The designer of Sentinels of the Multiverse will be there. All kinds of great designers on the panel, and Russ is going to stand there and pretend he knows what he's doing as well. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, right, Wakeland. Anyway, check that out, 10 a.m. in the Sphinx Ballroom at PAX East. I don't know if it's a ballroom. It's some kind of room. Little room. Anyway, the Sphinx Place, PAX East, 10 a.m. Be there. And that's what's in the news. Well, now it's time to talk about our friends at Winged Hussar Publishing.
Yes, indeed.
Who do some great historical books. Craig, could you name a few of these quality reading materials that they publish there?
Let's see. If you're interested in Julius Caesar, of course, you could look into the Gallic Wars, an annotated version of Caesar's conquest of Gaul. Of course, you have the Russian Imperial Cavalry by Vladimir A. Emanuel.
Nice.
And let's not forget the latest offering Frederick's orders, Frederick the Great's orders to his generals and his way of war.
And how cool would it be like, I'm going to order, left flank forward with a front press from the center, and people are like, where do you come up with that? That's the exact order Frederick the Great gave in battle number, whatever. You can know the exact historical references.
Ready? It is an essential object in a war of defense to know how to make a good choice of posts and to maintain them to the last extremity. When forced to retire, the second line begins to move, followed insensibly by the first, and as you have defiles in your front, the enemy will not be able to take advantage of you in the retreat.
See, I think we should try these. Well, there's a little music. I think we should try these things out in actual war games and figure out which war game best models Frederick the Great's theories of war.
Oh, there you go.
I think we should do that. So if you want the best... Craig, what do you got? You got some awesome sounds going on over there.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. Normally, that's me doing those noises. Pepto-Bismol helps out with that.
Oh, well, there you go.
So if you want
machine back to talk to Frederick the Great, although I don't have to because I have his own words in his hands as we speak.
So don't forget, if you want to order one of these great books, you head on over to wingedhussarpublishing.com. And between now and March 31st, time is running out. Be sure to use the coupon code D6G and save 5% on whatever you order.
That's right.
How good is that? Hone your tactics, learn something new, try it out, wingedhussarpublishing.com.
Aha!
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
And welcome back. We're going to call this segment Life of the American RPG Developer.
Oh, yes. I like it.
That's good. And, of course, as you all know, we have with us Sam Stewart and Tim Huckelbery from FFG. And we're going to talk a lot this episode about RPGs in general. We're going to have a Mulling Mechanics, which we know you guys have been looking forward to for a while, and we've had a bunch of people asking us for another one of those. So we're going to do that specifically tied to role-playing games, because why would we not do that?
Exactly.
But first, of course, we want to get a little handle on who these guys are that we're talking to. Right. And we'll get a little origin story. I hear there may or may not be a spider bite somewhere involved.
Nice.
And there's been a promise of no kryptonite.
No kryptonite.
So, guys, welcome once again to the show. And Eric is... We don't have an Eric.
There's no Eric on the show tonight.
No Eric. In fact, there is no period.
Give us time. We'll find an Eric for you.
You guys go get an Eric, because this is going to be awkward. Anyway.
Wow,
okay.
he's talking about other podcasts now. This is getting ridiculous.
Oh.
Are you guys allowed to do that?
We are, but certain companies aren't.
I have no idea. Anyway.
Little inside joke there. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to roll a D6, and today the role of Eric will be played by, believe it or not, I'm having a hard time opening my Fantasy Flight Games dice blister. Okay.
Wow.
Well, get some scissors.
He's busting on your packaging now. This is what's happening.
Okay.
Oh, man. Well,
Eric will
take that up with marketing, man.
You did just void the warranty by cutting it like that. So
Nice. You cannot return those dice, Craig. If they don't roll well, you're stuck with them.
Okay, well, we'll see. Okay, today the role of Eric will be played by Tim. Okay.
Yes.
Tim, why don't you tell us a little bit? Are you now, or have you ever been a gamer?
I want to have my attorney answer that one. Yes, I've been a gamer for a long time.
And how did you begin?
What were the early games?
I got to say, really just growing up, old school card games was really sort of got started, and really old school, like bridge and hearts and euchre and stuff like that. But once I was in the military, a lot of us were board gamers and played a lot of Risk, a lot of Risk, and then started to get into Games Workshop board games like Talisman way back in the day.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So that was kind of my origin with getting serious into gaming.
Oh, see, Craig, that's not sarcasm on my part, because back then Talisman was nice. See?
No.
Well, yeah.
No. You got it reversed. First of all, that's not very nice to our guests.
No, I'm just saying, I thought you were picking on me for saying Talisman was nice, but I think Talisman...
The problem with Talisman is from way, way back, not the new version. You've never even played the new version.
No, the new version is, I'm sure, quite nice. I was just so...
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying you're like, oh, nice, because Tim said that he'd played Talisman.
I was complimenting...
Oh, no, well, the version that Tim is talking about is the version that you and I both hated.
Well, But,
I'm just saying. And that now it's been recreated and all of those things have been fixed and it's great. But way back then, it was like 3 or 4 hours and then, you got sucked into the void.
Well, Craig, it's actually all right because in Minnesota, nice actually means that something's awful.
Does
there
it
you
really?
Oh yeah.
Stop and go Wiki or Google Minnesota nice.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
It's a real thing.
So now I got to be careful. I got to be careful what I'm talking about.
Now,
Anytime we compliment somebody, it's just because we're too passive aggressive to say what we're really thinking.
Nice. Oh, I did it again.
way to go, Russ.
Wow. This is going to be hard.
I'm halfway through the first segment.
So was your first...
And people say this show isn't educational, so you're learning so much.
I am. Yes, that's why I have the guests on, so I can learn something.
There you go. And the mirror of that, of course, and I think you guys know that in New England, wicked means actually good.
Right.
So,
yes.
Right.
And if it's really good, and because we're close to Boston, we are allowed to say wicked pissa.
So we can also say talisman is wicked nice. And you can just figure out what that means. Depending. So now...
anyway, back to the actual interview.
Yes. Thank God. So Sam, how about...
We could spend a while going over regional dialects. That's
we could. That'd be good.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Craig. Take it away. Save me.
You were to save you. I don't even know who the hell we're talking to. Heck. Who was that? Somebody just ran through here and yelled hell. Oh, they did it again. Anyway.
I think that was Eric, wasn't it?
It might have been.
It was Eric. That jerk.
Wow.
Wow. In a tailspin. Anyway, so, yeah. Okay, Tim, that's actually very intriguing. I don't think we've ever interviewed somebody who started with card games and then segued into games. Now, what did you do in the military, just out of curiosity?
I was in Space Command in the Air Force.
Space.
Very cool.
There's where we're going to...
That is cool.
Actually makes him our most qualified person to be working on 40K.
It does. That's awesome.
It is fun. I've actually used more of I have a physics degree as well, and did a lot of. I mean, I've actually used that and the Space Command stuff a lot when writing for 40K.
Really?
Nice. Now we have to ask you this too, since you are, of course, being Tim, obviously a 40K guru. What was your first 40K army ever?
First 40K army was actually built around Space Hulk, the first Space Hulk game. So it was actually an old school Tyranny army.
Oh, nice.
With lots and lots of Gene Stealers.
Back when you had two unit types, Gene Stealers and those little Patriarch dudes there, whatever they were.
Yeah, and that basically from there, I built my first Gene Stealer cult force, which I still have some of the models for in my humongous Gene Stealer cult army I have now.
Nice.
Which resulted in, of course, a nickname that lives to this very day. And for those of you who don't know, Tim is actually known as Tyranny Tim, and it's been for decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
it's still I still use that on several logins and whatnot. So yeah, it's still around.
Indeed.
And for those of you who are curious, he also uses the word password as most of his passwords. So
that's with a capital P though. Make sure you get it right.
Password 1, right? Very secure.
Yeah.
No fool.
Right.
Now, you were in the military. You're playing Games Workshop board games to start with. How do you end up going from Space Command in charge of all of these mighty starships that the government hides from us? And
can't talk about that. Sorry.
Exactly. And then segue that into Games Workshop.
Well, I back then I was huge into running Games Workshop stuff at shows and conventions. A lot of Space Hulk and 40K and really older games. Space Fleet, Tyranid Attack, all sorts of the older games like that. And they had a call for a new program they were starting called the Outrider program.
Oh, yes.
Which was volunteers who would run demo games at shows. And I was amongst the first wave of Outriders and really enjoyed doing that. And at the time I was hitting 10 years in the Air Force, and they were had a program basically. It was like here's a lot of money. Please leave because we can't afford this many people in the military anymore.
Right.
So I did that and got a job with Games Workshop, at first doing convention support. Did that and then basically spent 13 years in Games Workshop after that.
Nice.
And where did you work your way up to?
I did, because I ran customer service department. I did online support, public relations, marketing. Worked in the U.S. studio. That was about it. And then finally parted ways at that point. But it was great. Got to actually work in. We had the regional studios essentially at the time.
Yep.
So our U.S. studio was part of the global studio. So we got to go over several times to England and have global studio meetings and sort of see what was going on in the actual studio itself. So it was a great way to make lots of connections, which later on we'll talk about how I use that to start doing role-play work.
There, that's all. That is awesome, and it's funny. You're like, oh, and then studio, and then move on, because that's something where they're doing all the cool stuff. So, which one of you is shooting a gun? Just out of curiosity.
I think he's stapling documents.
Neither of us. We've got somebody else in the office who's stapling in the background.
Tell him just to stop working. Tell everybody there to just stop working,
please.
Please
Just stop Fantasy Flight.
Right. No one needs the new hotness for another day or two, right?
Who I am.
The company our size, when we staple, we seriously staple.
Right.
There's some stapling with authority going on there. I thought it was one of those disc guns and you were shooting it at each other.
So that gets Tim up to pretty much just before his FFG days there. So Sam, what about you? What is your how did you get started in gaming?
Well, let's see. I was pretty sheltered as a child, so I did not even have a Nintendo or a halfway decent computer. And it wasn't until college when I got my first laptop and then got Neverwinter Nights.
Oh.
And that was my first introduction into gaming.
So you had never played any kind of what we'd call a hobby game before then, or anything like that, or a board game beyond like Monopoly or anything prior to that?
I had played Monopoly, but never really been interested in it.
Yeah, okay.
And then, so my first introduction was actually through computer games, and through a computer game based on D&D, I started playing regular D&D.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So started, of course, with 3.5, like I'm sure everybody did, and diversified from there, and then got into all the different hobbies, especially Warhammer 40K, with some college friends.
Nice. Now, what was your first army?
Imperial Guard.
Oh, excellent choice. See, that's a man of distinction right there. Nothing wrong with Tyranids, just saying.
I've done both, so I'm okay.
There's nothing wrong with Tyranids, but I prefer to be able to shoot them from as far across the board as possible.
Right. It's all about how many treads.
The way.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And now with the new codex, I've started reappraising them again because they give me like 15 different options of battle cannons to put on my tanks. It's great.
So are you still playing, Sam?
I am.
Very nice.
Me and some of my coworkers sometimes throw down. One of these days, Tim will have to bust out his Gene Stealer cult army, and we'll see how that holds up.
Ah, yeah.
So how did you
chitin where his mouth is, or his mouth?
Right. How did you break into the gaming industry, Sam?
I actually broke into the gaming industry from Fantasy Flight. Fantasy Flight's the first gaming company I've ever worked in.
Oh wow.
I used to be a newspaper reporter back in the day, reporting on school plays and cat fashion shows for
wow.
A local weekly newspaper.
Oh, very nice.
Yep.
So you're the guy. Cat fashion. You're the cat meme guy.
Cat fancier.
You're the whole reason everybody shares cats on the internet. Is it you? Because that's
I've started out all of it.
Okay.
All of the internet cat.
That was a heck of a meme. I hope you're getting a penny in every cat picture or something. Because.
Yeah, no, but what ended up happening was the Fantasy Flight needed an editor, and so I got hired on there originally to correct the grammar in their rule books.
Oh,
and
so was it like for you, were you enough of a gamer even back then? You're like, this could be a cool job working for things like players. Just, hey, this company in my local town's hiring editors, I'll apply.
It was a little bit of both. Like, I knew that it would be a cool job because I had just been playing Midnight. If you remember Midnight, the role-playing game at all, was one of FFG's big entries into the D20 open source. That Huckelbery's back then, when anybody could do a module for 3.5.
Right.
And so I had been playing Midnight, so I knew about that, and I loved Twilight Imperium, that big old space opera board game that we do. But other than that, like, I did not know a whole lot about Fantasy Flight. And then as soon as I got into the company, I was like, oh, there's a lot more going on here than I ever knew about before.
Wow, cool. So that gets Sam into Fantasy Flight. So Tim, how did you make the jump from Games Workshop over into Fantasy Flight Games?
Well, I've been, while I was with Games Workshop, I was writing for the 40K Roleplay back when Games Workshop was doing it. And then after I left Games Workshop to work for a while, Diamond Comics distributors, and was still writing for the roleplay games there. And basically got a nice offer to come to Fantasy Flight, actually in the sales department. That didn't work out, but luckily they swapped me over to where I'm very happy to be at right now, in the roleplay game department.
Nice.
So yeah, and again, that was all the connections. To be honest, when I was with Games Workshop, I knew the folks at Black Library and talked with them a lot. And I'd actually come in one day and was just sort of complaining, why wasn't there a really good armory book just about all the weapons? So, well, we're starting actual 40K roleplay. How'd you like to write the armory section? So that's sort of how I got started doing that. Nice. And then the guys knew I was already writing for the roleplay game when I came over. So it worked out well. I'm really happy doing what I love doing, but doing it full time.
Very nice.
Oh, very cool. So they sniped you. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so, Sam, did you go right into the RPG division when you were hired? It was like right into editing RPG stuff?
No, I spend a lot of time editing board games. But what happened was when I came on board, actually just about the same time, Fantasy Flight was finalizing the deal to pick up Warhammer 40K Roleplay. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I got into the office, although I was working on board games, I was also getting questions like, so this game, this 40K game, right? You've played this before, right?
Right.
So one of my first jobs in editing was I was handed a giant stack of paper that got eventually turned into Disciples of the Dark Gods, one of the old supplements we did for Dark Heresy, one of the first, and told, edit this. So even from the beginning, I was working a little bit on role-playing games. Things tapered off for a little bit, but when they needed a second person, because Ross Watson, who you may be a little familiar with.
We know that guy. We know him.
Yeah.
He's the troublemaker.
Yep. But when Ross was slated to start working on Death Watch after he finished up Rogue Trader, I had been doing some editing, doing some writing in my spare time for all of the 40K roleplay. And they offered me the chance to take over Rogue Trader, and that was that at that point, right?
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
I believe Christian was said something along the lines of, "Would you be interested in this?" And I think I said something like, "Would I?"
That's right.
And then did he call you Big Ears?
Wow.
I'm not even sure I get the reference actually.
There's this old joke.
Here we go.
And I don't even know if I remember. That's the punchline. But so this woman, this guy with a I don't even know.
I think you did it properly. Just cut straight to the punchline. It's more efficient that way.
Right.
I think he did.
If they don't laugh, it doesn't matter. Move on. So
that was a very nice joke.
That was excellent, Craig. I like the old school reference, Craig. That was great.
Covering myself with glory.
So that gets you up to pretty much. So Sam, your role now pretty much is you are. What's your official title now there?
RPG producer.
RPG producer. So you're pretty much on Rogue Trader, or do you do a little everything here now, or?
I work on Star Wars now, actually.
Oh, of course, that other property.
Not many people have heard of this one. It's not as famous as 40K, but we think that this could really be a big hit with the kid.
Could be big someday, right?
Yeah.
it could be huge with kids. It's got cute bears and strange fish creatures.
Can you walk us through a little bit how FFG ended up with the access to all these cool Star Wars properties?
Actually, a lot of it's above my level of access.
It's on a shelf about 20 feet higher up in the room from where he's at. So we can't reach them. Sorry.
Gotcha.
All I know is that Christian and everyone else in management worked very hard to get that license.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you guys are doing some fantastic work with both the RPG and, of course, the Starship Combat X-Wing game is also just phenomenal.
X-Wing's been doing really well.
We just got literally this week, the Falcon and the Slave 1 came in and all that stuff, and we played games of that. It was crazy. It was awesome.
Oh, it's awesome, isn't it? Wait.
Yeah, we don't want to sidetrack this whole segment, but I could talk about that for another hour.
We might have to at some time.
I think we do.
Yeah, we could as well. So.
Let's talk about, earlier in the show we already discussed this in achievements. So we're going to,
yeah.
So, excuse me. So Tim, stuck at San Matorius today. So Tim, we had you brought in, they found out you know RPG as well. They hired you because you knew to write some of this stuff, and you're already working on it for GW. Where are you now in the RPG pecking order there at Fantasy Flight?
I guess right now I'm well in terms of like what I'm doing. I'm hardcore 40K through and through. But yeah, no, basically Sam and then Andy Fisher. We're both doing Star Wars, and then myself. And Tim Flanders and Max Book and Cal Strander make up the RPG team here.
So great. So you're carrying the 40K back banner, as it were. Amongst other things.
And old school to put it on the back banner too.
Nice. Nice. So
he keeps the younger elements of the 40K crew in line.
Right. He's the sergeant. Do you wear the helmet, Tim, or are you going helmetless like a real man? Couple studs in the forehead.
No, definitely no helmet. No helmet
there
at
you
all.
Go. That's
which is fine until you hit that Tox World environment that you roll.
They're
on
Space
the terrain,
Marines. They got all that extra
without
stuff.
A helmet dies.
Yeah, they got all that stuff in their blood, right?
Not the good old days.
Yeah, virus grenades. So let me ask you guys this: so you're both obviously do all kinds of stuff with RPGs, and I've always wondered what's like the hardest part. So when your boss comes to you and says, "Hey, we got Star Wars," or we're going to do another 40K RPG, and this time it's, focusing on, chaos or whatever. Like, what's the hardest part of starting a new RPG project? When someone says, "Here you go," what do you guys? What's the biggest thing you start losing sleep over till you figure it out?
Well, what isn't the hardest part, honestly? No, but jokes aside, the entire process is incredibly complicated. Building a new RPG from scratch, or even building one of the new 40K lines, is incredibly complicated. Everything from the new, each of the RPGs has their own look, so that has to get conceived of and designed. The what's going to go into the book, what changes are going to be made, what's going to stay the same. The overall core, usually the overall core concept has been figured out at the very highest levels of the company. They come down to you and they're like, "We want to do Death Watch, the role-playing game. It's going to be about Space Marines in the Death Watch." Right. So at least you know that.
Now, do they give you mechanics too? They say it's going to be percentile, or it's going to be our new dice with the symbols on them, or do they go that far? Or are they just like, "Here's the concept. We want you to wow us." I mean, how does that kind of work?
Well, we haven't actually done that many new role-playing games in our department. There's Star Wars, and then the various 40K role-playing games. Right. The 40K role-playing games have been set in their dice mechanic from Dark Heresy, although we've certainly made some changes over the last few years. Star Wars. Well, I'm sorry. There's also Warhammer 3rd Edition.
Right.
Yeah. And Warhammer 3rd Edition was one of the most successful aspects about it was the dice they designed. Mm-hmm. Jay Little designed, to give credit where credit's due, right? So the bosses decided, these dice mechanics worked really well in WIFRP, and they did some really cool things that would be really cool for Star Wars, enabling all the narrative mechanics and so forth. So they went directly to Jay and said, take your dice mechanic and rebuild it and make it into a Star Wars dice mechanic. So there's not. I'm sorry, that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but it's sort of a way of saying I don't know that there's a set way that the bosses decide which mechanic or which system they want to go for a role-playing game. But it's sort of they sort of make the call depending on the situation.
But I think that's really interesting because it sort of it's. I think in my head I have trouble figuring out like how would you. So like the 40K line is a great example, right? Where you have the core mechanics are kind of predetermined, right? You know it's going to be percentile based, and certain things are going to work because especially since all the games interlock. Mm-hmm. I hadn't really thought about Star Wars as basically like, hey, we like the core mechanics of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, so sort of take the core dice mechanic. It's kind of like saying take a D20 system, except it's take your really innovative, cool custom dice mechanic and plop it in Star Wars, right? Which is cool. But I would think you'd sort of have the same challenge. How do you make Star Wars RPG not feel like Warhammer Fantasy Battles with a Star Wars wrapper, right? And how do you make the latest version of the 40K RPG not feel like, Rogue Trader with new clothes? Like how do you work through that? Is it mostly the theme in the background of the book, or is it how you tweak the mechanics, or how do you guys kind of tackle that challenge?
Well, I'll hit Star Wars if Tim wants to hit Warhammer 40K, but
sure.
In the case of Star Wars, it was probably overly simple of me to just say they took the Wifrip mechanic and switched it over. And what they did was the Wifrip mechanic. That was you make a test and you see if you are successful or not based on the symbols, but you are also checking for other things that these symbols will show you. Right. So, in Wifrip it was like everything from you have boons, you have banes, you have strain the dice inflict, you have additional time the task takes. So they like the concept of the dice will let you succeed in a check. They will tell you if you fail in a check, but they will also tell you other things that happen during that check. And so they said, that's the concept we want to port over into Star Wars. And everything else was basically fair game. And Jay went to town on it from there. So he came up with the system we have now, where there is success and failure, and then there's the advantage and the threat, which is sort of the good ancillary things, the bad ancillary things. He was the one... and then the players can spend the advantage, the GM can spend the threat. Then there's the triumphs and the despairs, the critical successes and the critical failures, and what they represent. So, luckily, what ideas were taken from Whiprip were so basic that. They're very much like the foundation of a game, and you could build a lot of different games out of them, I think.
Right, it's kind of like D20 system, right? It's you can do anything with a D20, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And in this case, Star Wars actually is a really good match with it, because Star Wars is a game that so much calls out for narration and cinematic events and cooperative storytelling. Well, at least in my opinion. But it's a game that really wants that the fast-paced, creative task resolution. So I think it was a good fit, and definitely that was something that the bosses were thinking of when they came up with the idea of using those very basic ideas in the first place.
That makes sense. So Tim, how do you guys do that for 40K, especially since you're in the same sort of universe with each game? So it's you want it to feel connected, but yet it's still got to feel like a different experience than playing the other version.
I think that's actually what we said. We have to make it a different experience, and I think the rules mechanics, obviously, from all the games are the basics. Really, from game to game, things get tweaked, a few things get added, but it's really about the focus of each game. What kind of story you're telling, what kind of adventures you're going on, what kind of threats you face, how powerful you are, even. What's your point of view? You've got a couple of the games where the Imperium is just, that's those guys over there. We'll pay attention to them if we feel like it, or we're trying to overthrow them altogether. So I think that's what really differentiates the 40K line of different games there, and makes it appealing to different people to try out the different games, because you tell a different story with each one.
Right. Now, do you guys have sort of like a guideline, like a quintessential, this is the essence of what this we're building this time is, and you kind of like keep an eye on it, like, did you kind of distill down what's the essence of Star Wars? What's the key feeling this RPG is going to have versus here's the essence of, the Chaos 40. I'm sorry, I forget I'm totally blanking on the name.
Black Crusade.
Thank you. Black Crusade. Here's the essence of Black Crusade versus here's the essence of Rogue Trader. Do you guys look at it that way and sort of have like a bullet list of the 4 or 5 touchstones you want to make sure you get into every sort of element of the game design?
Absolutely. It's each of the games definitely has some very specific points that things want to touch on. So for Edge of the Empire, it's all about living on the fringe of society, not being able to rely on anybody but yourself and your shipmates. The concept of obligations that tie you to do certain things that you may not want to do, but you have to deal with them. That frontier concept of being almost outside the law and having to do whatever is necessary at the time to survive, that sort of thing.
All right. And
those are all very specific to Edge of the Empire. And when Age of Rebellion and Force and Destiny come out, they'll use the same mechanics, but those concepts in the game you play through them are going to be very different.
Oh, cool.
I'm making hand gestures now. That's what I do whenever I'm on a podcast. I'm making a forceful gesture that nobody can see.
Nice. Well, you're using the force. I can feel it. I'm sensing the disturbance. Yes.
Disturbance. Nicely done.
Excellent. That's good. That's great. You can tell, and I think it's just really unique. Sort of about this approach is that you're having these and modules is the wrong word. It really is, I guess, a new game, but they're sort of going to connect. The Star Wars ones connect kind of like the 40K ones do, right? So you could have elements from one overlapping with the other, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Eventually, what we want is just like in 40K. I think one of the most interesting games described was half Dark Heresy and half Death Watch, where you play Inquisitors working alongside Death Watch Marines. Eventually, what we want to see in Star Wars is everybody brings their own book that they want to the table. So if somebody wants to play a full-on Jedi, they have their Force and Destiny. The Smuggler player brings Edge of the Empire, right. And the Secret Rebel operative may bring Age of Rebellion.
Nice. Well, that's really cool. So let me, and this is something interesting I've always thought about too. So like, obviously when you play testing like a miniature war game or a board game, you're really, really concerned about balance. How do you tackle play testing an RPG since, there's some kind of balance there that needs to exist, yet so much of it is sort of, based on what the DM designs. How do you guys tackle that challenge?
You want to lead off with this one, Tim?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is, the playtesters hopefully they're working off the same adventure. We give them sometimes, this is what you should test. We have them tell us, which characters they're playing when they're going through. And obviously each group will have different characters they're trying. A lot of it's just taking it is kind of difficult because we'll get a whole lot of feedback from different types of characters playing, different groups, GMs who maybe run things slightly differently, and just trying to distill out what kind of common issues that were brought up. So my side, I literally, when I get playtest reports, I'll go through and just write down every time I see an issue raised and see how many times the different groups raise that same issues. Oh, yeah, that's one I definitely got to look at. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Board games, you can, tweak things on the fly because when you're generally playing a board game, that same occurrence can come up multiple times. So if you change something, you get a chance to see it again and see if what your change did to it. While you're playing, without necessarily throwing off any of the balance of the game, the whole game in progress. But yeah, role play it's tricky. Sometimes it's we'll get reports and just we're changing this, and this. Try it all over again with these, just from scratch, and see how that goes. I don't want to say it's more touchy-feely because it's not. A lot of it's very mechanical. But it is, a lot of it feels, at least to me, and Sam may say differently, a lot of it's just sort of like almost a gut check on it.
Yeah, kind of a sanity check on the design.
Yeah, well, there is a certain amount of, so playtesting is always going to be a challenge for role-playing games because of all the different groups that because of all the different groups or different characters somebody could play,
right,
or anything like that. So the best thing I think you can ensure for when playtesting a role-playing game is that the different player classes are balanced against each other, and not necessarily balanced so that all of them can do the exact same thing, but so that all of them can do something interesting and hopefully something unique in the course of the game.
Right.
So definitely one thing we look for playtester feedback is, we ask them to use a bunch of different characters with a bunch of different abilities, for example, and at the end of it, we want to hear, was this, did I feel like the scientist was not doing as much damage as the gunslinger when they were shooting guns,
right,
but did the scientist feel like when his turn to shine came up and he was supposed to do sciencey things, were his actions just as interesting and fun as the gunslinger the gunslinger had shooting somebody?
Right.
Yeah, that's actually really important because it's does everybody have a chance to contribute equally to having an enjoyable experience? And did the character really make it? Everybody should make a difference in the game. It might be shooting somebody, or it might be doing sciencey things, whatever. But do you feel like your presence there added to the story that you're creating?
Exactly.
Right. That's great.
Now, there are some other balanced things as well, and you do need to make a certain effort to test out things such as encounters and adventures. And at that point, usually what you could do is get groups to form what you might consider like a balanced party. So at least have one person who is able to fight, maybe fight at long distance. One person is able to fight at short distance. One person who is good at absorbing damage and not dying, and then one or two people who are less combat capable and more focused on other things, and ask them to run through the encounters, preferably multiple times, and just make sure that whatever you're putting them up against doesn't immediately do them in or just become a complete pushover. We can't be sure that it will always be the results will always be the same over 100% of the times, but you can sort of move things a little bit to the middle.
That makes sense. I have some fun questions here for you at the end. But Craig, did you have any other technical questions before I get to my fun questions?
Well, I was just one thing about the creative construct, the process. Is it sort of like, now that you guys are sort of at the top of this particular endeavor, are you getting sort of like from on high, you get a mandate and then you go into your office and try to come up with an overall scheme? Or is there more of a teamwork sort of approach to it? Like where do the larger concepts come from? Once you've got the framework handed down to you by the guys above, like what's that process like a little bit about where you where these larger concepts come from?
Well, it's go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Well, I mean, a lot of times the framework might just be a short sentence and a title for, like, what this book is in a nutshell, and then we sort of take that and build off of that. So a lot of times, I mean, it might be a very unstructured framework when you're talking about that for a supplement book, especially.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll flesh that out and say, okay, well, we're going to do a book about the Ipsis Mechanicus. Okay, what does that mean? What kind of book are we going to do? Should it be heavily slanted towards the game masters or the players, or just be an adventure book? And almost harkening back to what we were talking about, what's the most difficult thing? A lot of it is just, there's so much you want to put in a book.
Right.
Just deciding what you can't fit into those pages is often the most difficult part.
Yeah, and that's off. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's usually really tough. And it's like, wow, well, I've only got 144 pages to work with. I could do 144 pages on just one world, the Adeptus Mechanicus controls.
Right.
But that may not sell too well, so probably get some more different stuff in there. So that's actually a really tricky thing.
I would imagine.
And that's also when the entire department tends to sort of pool together, at least, especially at the initial stages, and just start spitballing ideas. Tim might say, "Well, I've got this Adeptus Mechanicus book in here. What do you think should go into it?" Or, "I want to put this into it, but what else should I put into it?" And then the other Tim and Max might start throwing different 40K things that they think they would want to see in an Adeptus Mechanicus book, and then it gets boiled around. I mean, eventually, all these concepts are worked into a functional game plan for a book, and that's put back up to management and to our licensor, and they also sign off on this stuff too, of course. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's very much a get together and throw some ideas around. What would be neat? We haven't done this yet. We really need to do this in this book. But actually, like Sam said, Eric just walked by and threw me off. Sorry.
Nice.
The licensor is a big part of it, and you're talking about what keeps the various games honest. I mean, Games Workshop, I can't say enough, is really fantastic to deal with on that.
So they make sure you have everything in there, and it matches the consistency of the universe and all that stuff.
They're very integral process, part of the process of what we do.
Let me ask you this: is it a different experience on the Star Wars side? Do you get a lot of feedback from I don't know, LucasArts or whoever it is you guys work with over there?
It's not so different. Really, in the end, the feedback from both companies is very very forthcoming, and they're very approachable if we need to know something. The particulars of how the information may be presented sometimes are different. We may get files from one company and spend more time talking to the representatives of another company. But that also changes depending on what we're asking in particular, or what project we're working on. In general, though, working with both companies is, as Tim said, both very professional and really, it's a really good relationship just overall.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean they're honestly wanting just as much as we do to make it a good product.
And besides, you work out a pretty good working relationship when you can meet your licensing representatives at Gen Con, sit down and have a beer with them, and just talk things over.
Right. Nice. Cool. Can I ask my fun questions now, Craig, or do you got more?
Yes. You may now ask your fun questions.
All right, here we go. So both of you obviously have played many role-playing games. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So which of all to both of you? So let's just start with. I'll just pick a point at random. Tim, do you prefer to GM or be a player or both?
Right now in my life, I'd rather play because I don't have time to really GM. But back in the day, especially when I was in the military, and we were doing rotating shift work.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time, we were like the only people it felt like in the world awake. So we would actually role play a lot, just our people in our group, when we were like graveyard shifts. So at that point, I loved to GM because I would, have time to actually, do it right, and make up some fun adventures and fake handouts and other wacky stuff like that.
Nice.
So yeah, if I had the time, I love to GM.
All right. How about you, Sam?
I like to switch back and forth. I'm actually almost the opposite GM to Tim. I like to fly by the seat of my pants and just make things up on the fly. So I don't have the prep work problem as much. However, the constant just trying to come up with stuff GMing is really exhausting in the when you're doing it. So after I've GM'd a game, I usually at least try and bow out and try and get somebody else to run a game. But as I'm sure you guys know, it's a lot easier to find players than it is to find game masters.
Yes. Well, what as players, what is your most? We'll start with Sam now, because Tim went first last time. So, what is your most unique or favorite character you've ever played?
Wait, so who are we starting
Sam.
with now?
Sorry, Sam.
yeah, no worries. Let's see. My favorite character.
Get ready, Tim, for the steal. Get ready for the steal. All right, Sam, go ahead.
Half orc. This is 4th edition D&D. Half orc ranger, who was in the Planescape setting from 2nd ed, ported over into 4th ed. He was a Victorian thug brawler. So imagine half orc with a cravat, sideburns, and a wicked disposition.
Nice.
But a very thuggish sense of humor.
I like it. How about you, Tim?
Unfortunately, a lot of the role-playing we did, especially in the military, was paranoia. We really don't latch onto your characters for a very long time.
Oh, that was a great game. I love paranoia.
I'd have to say, actually, when I was with Diamond, we had a long-running, started off 3.5 and migrated to Pathfinder. Had a very, very hapless sort of... Boy, it's hard to tell what exactly he was trying to do. He wasn't very good at much of anything, which is half the fun of playing him. Kind of a paladinish kind of character. Cleric, which wasn't really good at anything, which was, again, I enjoyed playing him just because it was kind of frustrating, but having epic battles against one goblin for a long time where neither one of us hit each other. But it was just fun playing somebody who was just that bad.
Nice. So my last crazy question here is you've already alluded to this, but I wanted to ask you in your GM role. Okay, so we'll start with Tim now. So Tim, did you prefer to do? You kind of hinted at this, but do you prefer to do a lot of prep work before a session, or are you more of a seat of the pants guy? And if you do a lot of prep work, like how in depth do you go?
If I want to run something, especially obviously if I've created it myself, I like doing a lot of prep, and I like having a lot of just what ifs. Yeah. Ready. If nothing else, just enough sort of winged out that I can wing it for a while if I had to. But yeah, and I like doing the handouts. I like having some stuff like that ready to roll with. I understand where Sam's coming from because I'm the same way. A lot of times, it's kind of fun just to stay like 3 steps ahead of the players and see how long you can, almost like just surfing, how long you can go before. It's time to order pizza, guys. Let's take 30.
Give me 10 minutes. I got to work. So Sam, how do you do that? I mean, so you're doing CD of the Pants, which I think is awesome. How do you? I mean, what is the minimum prep you have to do, or do you just roll everything up on the fly, or just kind of go totally off the cuff?
It definitely depends on the adventure and what's been going on before. Sometimes I'll write up a couple pages of just notes or maybe copy a couple profiles from that I expect to be using in the adventure. Honestly, it sort of comes down to one of the lessons that I actually learned from Ross Watson was about GMing was the best possible thing you can do when you're a GM is when a player says, I want to do this, you say, okay, and here's what happens. Mm-hmm. So when players come up with ridiculous stunts and silly plots, you indulge them, and if you can indulge them and also give them some horrible why can I say that word?
Complication?
Complication, thank you. I could not say that word. No, if you can give them some horrible complication that goes with it, then it's even better. So as far as prep work goes, if you have an idea of I always know the overall story that's being told, and so I try and prep for that, and then I just make sure I have a few copies of various adversary books or anything with some extra profiles for some bad things that I can just suddenly grab out of if I particularly need to.
Nice. All right, great.
Yeah, like what Sam said. I mean, I think, and this may come off sounding kind of pompous, but a lot of it's almost like improv theory.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing you can possibly do is say no.
Right.
You're creating a story together, and so if someone wants to go down a certain road, and as long as like the other players aren't throwing heavy objects at him at that point, saying it's a stupid idea, go with it. See what happens. Say yes, and take it along, and hopefully that if everyone's there to have a good time together, it'll go to a good place.
Great. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the and giving us your backstories here. I really appreciate it, and get a little insight into what it's like to build RPGs at Fantasy Flight.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Yes.
We'll take a little break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about mechanics in RPGs and mull them, right, Craig?
Ooh, we're gonna mull. There'll be much mulling involved.
Indeed, with spices.
Fortunately, not
like a delicious glug.
Yes, a glugwein. Oh, now I got to go. We'll be right back.
Looking for not too horrible insight and entertainment beyond the usual paltry 4-hour D6G shows? Well, there's only one place on the planet you can find it, and it's in the Lost Chapters. Go to the D6generation.com and begin your quest. Damn, farming games. Why did it have to be farming games?
And now it's time to talk about Conquistador games.
Yeah, Craig, they have a brand new Kickstarter. Have you heard about this?
I have. It's very intriguing.
It is. It's called War Stories, and it's cool. It's a hybrid of sort of a miniature game meets a board game kind of thing. Have you seen this? So the deal is it's a self-contained board game, and they've got two. They've got, the Liberty Road to Liberty, Road, and they've got Red Storm. So you can Liberty Road is the Americans versus the Germans, World War II, or Red Storm, guess who, Craig? Who's fighting in Red Storm?
The Germans versus the Portuguese.
No Portuguese were harmed in making this game.
Wow.
Russians.
They're very nice.
But here's the thing. So you get this really cool board game, self-contained, but then also it's designed to work with any miniatures you might own for World War II, like 144th scale or maybe 258 scale. Anything like that will work fine. Your Flames of War miniatures, whatever you got lying around will work fine in this game. And what I like about it a lot, they've done a lot of things to capture as many tactical options as you can, but also keeping the game very simple. For example, they got these cool tiles that handle movement. And what's interesting is, like open flat fields where you can move quickly, well, those tiles are larger, so you don't have to worry about, but it still counts as one space. Then woods where you got to move slowly, those tiles are smaller, meaning that it takes more movement points to get through the woods. You don't have to think about it, you just count the spaces, but the woods have more spaces in them than the open plains. That kind of stuff is sprinkled throughout this game for a very fast and cinematic gameplay feel.
It's cool.
It's very cool. What's also cool about it is you got built-in fog of war, you got awesome cards that handle, and there's a point system that you can pick what auxiliary stuff you're going to have in your deck that's going to be available to you. So if you say you want artillery support, just buy it for your deck. If you want minefields, you got to add it to your deck. And you got to pick and choose what you're going to put in there and build your deck up for the exact kind of force you want to play with when you fight. But again, you can either use little tokens to mark your stuff down on the table, or you can use really cool miniatures. And on the Kickstarter, they've still got some deals left with pre-painted miniatures available as well. Cool. If you want all that also. So it looks really, really slick. And again, the whole goal here is for fast play. Gives you that sort of video game feel. Fog of War and all that stuff, but it's really not a lot of rules to memorize, which is what I love.
Yeah.
You got to check it out.
Great.
You got to check it out. So head on over to Kickstarter.com and search for War Stories from our friends at Conquistador. That's it. Games.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out. Ever wondered what it would be like to go to a school for the magically gifted? Head over to www.munjistudios.com and check out their new game, Alchemist Academy, coming to Kickstarter soon. So I saw this video the other day, and it was a bunch of guys who were dueling with all sorts of different weapons from sci-fi and fantasy and comic books. They had had Thor's hammer in there. They had phasers. They had blasters. They had tricked out guns from video games. They had everything you could think of. There was a sonic screwdriver. You name it, they had the weapon. And it was a case of everybody trying to best each other and see which weapon reigned supreme. And as I watched this, I started thinking about it. Like, if you could pick only one weapon, what weapon would you actually pick? And if you brought anything into it, like, I don't know, maybe you bring a chainsword or a bolter or whatever from 40K, what would you want to do if you only had one weapon, the ultimate weapon that you could pick? And I was talking about this on Twitter, and it was kind of hilarious responses that I was getting, but I started thinking a lightsaber would be pretty cool, but then I realized I am not a Jedi Knight as much as I would like to be, and although it would be really cool to wield a lightsaber, I'd risk a better than even chance of slicing off my own head, or if someone were shooting at me, even if I could deflect the blaster bolt or the bullets or whatever was coming my way, I likely couldn't do it fast enough and it would blast a hole in my chest anyhow. So lightsaber, as cool as it sounds, was right out. And I thought, okay, maybe a phaser would be cool because, I'm all about the sci-fi, and maybe I'd look at Star Trek, and if I had a phaser, then I could, shoot those, and they don't require any great supernatural skill like being a Jedi Knight, and I'd probably get better at it the more I tried it. And they even have like a beam of light that kind of points where you're shooting, so it's like a little extra targeting. And if you were shooting at a Jedi Knight and you had two phasers, you might be able to actually stand a chance of hitting him, because unless he had a double-handled lightsaber, you'd be able to keep him busy with one phaser and then shoot him with the other phaser, and I don't know, maybe you could take out Darth Maul, who knows. And I'm like, yeah, but that's still something then a Jedi could just rip it right from your grasp, and what good is that? It doesn't matter. He's going to rip the phaser from your grasp, or whatever weapon it is that you have. And yes, I'm crossing all my universes here, because in my world you can have a phaser and a lightsaber all on the same planet. And I thought, well, wait a minute. What kind of thing couldn't be taken from my grasp? What kind of weapon would be mine, and short of ripping me apart limb from limb, which I'm going to assume the bad guy isn't going to do today, would actually keep me alive and stay with me? And I came up with a solution. That solution is Ash's chainsaw arm. That would be the best weapon. Now, it's not super high-tech or fancy, but it's a chainsaw, and it's your arm. It's not going anywhere. They can't confiscate it. They can't take it away. It's not going to get left behind or fall out of your pocket or down a garbage chute or anything. It is your arm. It is attached to you. And if you're really good at it, you could probably put some extra armor in there and maybe use it to deflect things like bullets. And if better yet, you could get a little fancy, and maybe you could sort of turn it into the Swiss Army knife version of the chainsaw arm, and you could stick extra attachments in there. So then I would take a lightsaber and put that in one spot, and I'd take a sonic screwdriver in another, and I might stick a little Valerian steel blade in there just for good measure. So yeah, if I was going to pick one weapon in all the world, I think it would have to be Ash's chainsaw arm. So that's my choice. I'd love to know what you guys would pick if you could pick only one weapon.
Oh, I see his little helmet with pointy horns on it. That must be Vic the Viking coming over the wall here. And
hey ho! Oh no, that's a dwarf.
No, that's a dwarf. Vic has been part of the War Store since 1999, bringing the war to your door for a decade and more. We just got to do the basics here because it's been a while. The War Store, best prices on the net, fantastic service. They have the stuff you can't find anywhere else. What's that?
It's best service on the net.
Both of those things. Best prices and best service on the net. And that's the thing that makes them so fantastic. You're getting great value. You're getting great service. You're getting miniature game selection, bar none. If it's a miniature game, pretty much the War Store has it. And if you're trying to find it, it's hard for local stores to carry everything. The SKUs are so deep on these games. It's a lot to do. If you want to find those deeper SKUs, the War Store is the place to go. They're at almost every convention that matters. They're there. They got the supplies. They're ready to go. I mean, they got the extended hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., so you can order things pretty much any time, early morning to late evening. It's just fantastic, Craig. I can't say enough good things about these guys.
Oh, absolutely. They are my go-to place for the stuff that's really hard to find or hard to get. And news as well. They are a great resource for news and what's coming and what's coming down the pipe and what's available all of a sudden that you totally forgot you wanted.
Oh, yeah, I got to be honest. I follow them on Twitter, and a lot of times I see things first on them, and I better make a note of this in the news. Something's just coming out, and I find out first on the War Store. All the Raging Heroes stuff is being featured now. New Infinity stuff's up there. You name it. It's on their website. It's fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
It is cool. And that is thewarstore.com.
In 2008, an elitist gaming group was sent directly to jail by the Geek for a rules infraction they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped a low-security white-collar work detail into the New Hampshire underground. Today, still wanted by the gaming community, they survive as podcasters of fortune. If you need a game reviewed, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can listen to the D6G team.
Time now to talk about our friends at Game Salute. The great guys at Game Salute, they work so hard in the gaming industry, making sure everything you need to have a quality gaming experience, whether it's finding a great retail store, whether it's making sure a fantastic game is published, like the brand new card game of Oz coming out from them, and you want to check all this stuff out, go to GameSalute.com. The card game of Oz looks fantastic. They just got the Princess Bride license. They're working on games for the Princess Bride. In fact, they have a thing now on their website where you can contribute ideas for some great Princess Bride games. They're going to have a whole line of those. They're trying to look for some really authentic games for that. It'll be great. So Game Salute they publish awesome tabletop games through the Powered by Game Salute program, and they make sure that independent publishers, the stores, industry, everybody gets what they need, gets it out there, gets it done. They're literally the engine, becoming the engine behind much of the game industry. It is fantastic. They're out there at Gamma, they're out there at PAX, they're out there at all the cons, making sure that small developers can get their games out there and published and seen by the publics. So head on over to GameSalute.com for all the latest info.
This is the Dice Tower Network at Dicetowernetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. And so, as we mentioned earlier, we've got Tim and Sam with us, and they are the gurus of role-playing games at Fantasy Flight Games, and we haven't done a Mulling Mechanics in a while, and I have been really looking forward to doing an RPG Mulling Mechanics, and who better to do a Mulling Mechanics with an RPG than these two guys?
Exactly.
So let's...
Oh, I thought we were going to actually try to answer that for a while.
Oh.
Okay. The first 5 minutes of the debate will be... No. So we've decided we've come up with a couple just a couple categories of things, and we're going to ramble on. And of course, these guys are RPG designers, so
right. And are great ramblers.
And they're ramblers. They're ramblers,
right?
So, very first, let's talk about what core dice mechanic, Russ. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think I was torn with what to start with for a topic here, and character creation was up front, but then I realized when I'm learning an RPG, and I just went through this with Iron Kingdom, so I was like, when I'm learning an RPG, and you start looking at the character creation system, and you look at, the first thing you ask yourself is, well, what do these numbers mean, and how do they impact the game, and how much do I really need to worry about this particular stat or that particular stat? It really comes down to, I think, you got to kind of get a feel for the core dice mechanic of the game so you can understand anything else. So you can know where your energy is being put in your character, for example. So, and there are a few core mechanics. That'll be kind of fun to look through some of them, talk about them a little bit. And I wanted to call the first one here the granddaddy, but I'm not really sure it is because of D&D, so it's kind of on the edge. But sort of one of the classics is the percentile system, right? Which you see in, for example, Rogue Trader, right? Which is, can you guys describe let's see, I don't know, Sam, how does the percentile core mechanic kind of work in a game like Death Watch or whatever?
I'm going to pull that question. I'm going to say, Tim.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, better give it to Tim.
Oh my gosh! See, I would ask Sam a rules question about that myself, but
percentile dice.
Percentile is pretty much what it sounds like. I think it's for those people who maybe weren't maybe. I know some people. I got to say. They say, oh yeah, it's a percentile system. Oh geez, that sounds like math. I didn't want to do any more math after I left school. But it's exactly what it sounds like. If you've got a 30% to something succeeding, then it's right there.
Right.
And the other part I do like about that personally myself is it lets you have large numbers that feels impressive if you've got a big number for a characteristic.
Right. If you're looking at a character stats and they're like 30, 40, 25 or whatever, or 50, you're probably dealing with a percentile system.
Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And basically it's just, roll a D100, which is usually 2D10 with one of them telling you it's the hundreds die. And if you get higher than the number you're trying to get to, like someone says, the DM says, you have actually, I guess it kind of depends, right? You're maybe trying to get higher or lower. If someone says you got a 60% chance of climbing that wall, and you roll your percentile chance. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. Right? Pretty much there.
Yep.
And what are the pros and cons? What do you guys like about the percentile system?
Well, I think I'll just jump in real quick, but I think one of the pros of the percentile system is that it gives you a lot of granularity. Mm-hmm. So if you want to make differences if you want to have huge swings and differences between different abilities or different skills, you can, because really your skill rank goes from 0 to 100. Or even higher, depending on how the system works, because a lot of percentile systems will have positive and negative modifiers you put onto your skill before you roll the percentile dice.
Right.
And so you can go above 100 in your skill and still make a check.
Right. So it's basically like you're trying to climb a wall, right? It might be a strength check plus your climbing skill. So your strength might be a 30, and then your climbing skill is 20. So now you're at 50% chance to do it. But oh no, the wall's covered in grease, so now it's minus 20% off your roll. So now you need to roll a 30 or less to get up that wall, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
But if you wanted to get really clever, it could be like you have a skill of 21 and a strength of 32, so it's a 53, but minus 7 for the grease. And
the wall's just a shade moist, so it's minus 1.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of moist, but there's some moss, so a lot of minus 2.
Yeah.
Moisture.
So there's a lot of granularity there, so that's cool, and it's a classic system, and it's easy to get your head around, right? You know what you're talking about after a couple minutes of fiddling with it. Now, the one probably most people are familiar with, if they've played Dungeons and Dragons before, is of course the D20 system, but it doesn't really have to be D20. It's basically a single core die type, right? So the game system really has one core die. D20 is probably the most famous, and you got a target number somewhere in there to roll above or below, depending on the system, usually below. And if you get that number under there, or actually no, I guess in D&D it's above, right? So in D&D you want to get natural 20 is great, a 1 is bad, and trying to get above the number you're trying to get to, right?
That's how it is now.
Yeah. Is there
the days of THAC0 are long over, right?
Yes, they are. Exactly. So what do you think about the D20 versus the percentile or a single die roll system? Is it...
I think you actually just nailed it. And I think for a lot of people it's just easier just to roll one die.
Yeah.
It's just only one thing to worry about, especially if you're like a lot of times playing around a crowded table and you're knocking down things if you're rolling lots of dice. But I think that's the biggest advantage I can see.
Yeah. And so for many years, those were sort of the two of the big core systems, right? A single core die, like a D10 or D20, or you had the percentile system. But over the years, of course, role-playing games have tried to distinguish themselves and be different and just sort of, make it be like, we're not like them, we're different. And so one of the ones that is sort of interesting that Craig and I played not too long ago when we experimented with the Serenity RPG was the Cortex system, which is...
I got this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
I love the Cortex system. Basically, you've got skills and abilities, which most and attributes, which most games have. And in the Cortex system, rather than have ranks or levels, what you've got is actually die types. So you're going to start with a D4 and everything, and then you're going to boost whatever it is. As you get advancements and things, you go from a D4 to a D6 to a D8, all the way up to D12. You can actually get like D12 plus D4 and things like that. That's how you get even beyond that. And whenever you're going to try to succeed at anything, what you're doing is adding your attribute dice to your skill dice, and your skills are rated exactly the same way with a die type, and you're rolling and you're looking for a target number. And the target number, again, like most of these games, is floating based on the difficulty of what you're doing. So there's a lot of, for the games master in the Cortex system, there's a lot of subjective judgment that you have to do, and you're going to have to factor in the moisture of the wall and the sliminess of the wall and everything into the target number that you're basically giving your players. And then let's say Russ is a really strong guy. He's got a D10, and he's, for some reason, really bad at climbing, so he's only got a D4. So he's got a D10 and a D4, and I'm going to say, well, it's really slimy and it's really weta, and so you need a 10. So on a D10 plus a D4, he's going to need to get at least a 10. And you basically gauge their success or failure on how far away they are from that. If they get a lot over it, then they succeed, and you kind of like dress it up in cool narrative. If you got really, really under, then you dress failure up in a really cool narrative that's usually more fun for you.
Yep. I know exactly what kind of GM you are.
So, have you guys experimented with this? Have you played a game system like this before?
I actually haven't played a game with it, but I'm familiar with the concept and the system. I think one of the cool things about it is that it definitely it's got this visual element to it, right? Because the better you get, the bigger your dice are.
Right.
In some ways, it's not that much different from a D20 system. You've got a target number. You're trying to roll over that. You're trying to get a total skill over that target number. But instead of just knowing that you have a 4 in climbing, you have this big die in climbing or this small die in climbing, and something, I don't know, more visually and aesthetically satisfying, I think.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. The only thing about it that got me confused was it makes advancing a little tricky. Like when you get to because the dice aren't linearly better, right? So a D4 to D6 from D8 to D10, what they did was I think the increase in experience or whatever it was to pull your die from like a D8 to a D10 got more. So it was a little trickier to advance. And then also it got really complicated in my head when you were trying to figure out, okay, it's D10, but then to go to D10 plus 4, it's this. So the advancing part to me got a little confusing. But once you had it all on paper, it made total sense. So it's a little more complicated, but it is cool. I think the different dice types are pretty neat. So that's that system. Now another system. This gets sort of near the. There's also a couple different systems that are around success-based systems, and one of the ones that I really enjoyed. It's actually a very, very simple game. It's called Fairy's Tale. It's a very simple RPG. You can get it on Drive-Thru RPG for like $10, and it's really designed for young players. What's neat about this system is basically each of your stats indicates the number of dice you get to roll, and it's a D6 system, but all you care about on the dice is rolling even numbers. So, and basically any even number you roll is a success, and any odd number you roll is a failure. So if you have, let's say, a strength 3, you're going to get to roll 3d6. And I might say that wall is pretty slippery, so you need to get 2 successes to get up that wall, and the player rolls 3 dice, and they're hoping for at least 2 even numbers to climb the wall. If they get 3 even numbers, they really climbed it well. If they only get 1 even number, maybe they fell or they didn't quite make it, 0. So it's a very simple success-based system. And I know there's a lot of variance sort of on this thing. But it was sort of an interesting introduction to the much more popular and well-known fudge dice system. Are you guys familiar with fudge dice?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it also actually almost ties more into, or just as much into the White Wolf systems and the Shadowrun systems, the straight-up dice pool too.
Right. Yeah. So why don't you describe White Wolf? I'd forgotten to put them on here. How did White Wolf work?
Well, White Wolf and Shadowrun, it's the same idea basically. I think a lot of these are, but your stats determine how many dice you roll, and with White Wolf, I believe it's skill. It is in fact the same. It's skill plus innate attributes, so like strength plus climbing skill determines the number of dice you roll, and you're rolling D10s in this case.
I remember D10s,
Yeah, but it really works with any die, right? Because you're just looking for, in this case, it's 7s or higher are success, and anything else is a failure, and a 1 is a critical failure.
Right.
And you need more success. And you need a certain number of successes to succeed, and the 1s can cancel things out. And Shadowrun's got the same thing, but with D6s.
Right.
And it's just a 5 or a 6 then.
Yeah, exactly. I'd forgotten about, you're right, and I'd forgotten about White Wolf, which is the same exact thing, and it was D10s. You're right. That's cool. I remember my D10 cube of the Vampire Masquerade dice. I had those.
Oh, yeah.
So the fudge dice is sort of interesting. So fudge is, there's sort of a generic system for that, and then one of the more recent games that uses fudge is the Dresden Files RPG actually does. And fudge dice are sort of special D6s, and some of the sides are blank, some of the sides have pluses on them, and some of the sides have minuses on them. And it's sort of like what we just described. You're rolling your pool of D6, and your stats are going to tell you how many of these you roll, and you're hoping to get a certain number of pluses, but the difference is you can also get minuses which subtract from your success. So if I need 3 successes and I roll 3 dice, or let's say I need 2 successes and I roll 3 dice, and I get 2 successes, but then I also get 1 negative, I only really got 1 success. So I didn't quite make it, which is sort of an interesting mechanic.
Well, Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about that one is that because most of it is you're trying to get your base skill number up to a certain point, and then you're rolling the dice and adding the successes onto it, right?
Right.
And you're trying to hit a target number.
Right.
But depending on what you can add to that base mechanic, and they have a lot of narrative elements to let you do that, you can basically just put your skill number right above the target number, and the whole thing about the fudge dice is they're just, or anything like that, is they're just a randomization system.
Right.
It's yes, you in a perfect world, you have gotten your skill number above the target number by 1. But rolling these 5 dice means you could be up 5 more, or you could be down 5, or something in between. So you don't always know if you succeed or not.
Exactly.
But if you stack the deck and you're doing a really easy task, it's almost is guaranteed, which I think mirrors real life a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a neat mechanic, and I like how it's implemented in Dresden in particular. It's really cool. And now that brings us to systems that use special custom dice with fancy icons on them. Can you guys think of any systems that might use that?
Who are you going to throw this one to?
Anybody but me. How's that?
Yeah, go for
Sam.
it. Let's hear it. No.
The guy in charge of Star Wars, Russ.
Sam.
Well, I mean, and this is actually the second time FFG's done something with this, because we also did Warhammer 3rd Edition back in the day.
Yes.
I was going to say back in the day. We're still doing it, but we
you mean like 2 years ago?
It back in the day.
This is kind of funny because there's a person in the office who's quite young, and she was talking about something back in the day, which I guess was like last Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, we've basically taken Wifrup was the first time we did something like that, and that's been going on for a while now. But now Star Wars is the new one.
Yes.
And actually, there's a lot of similarities with both the systems to just that same dice pool mechanic we were talking about with White Wolf or anything like that, where you're rolling multiple dice and you're trying to get more success symbols than you are failure symbols, and the success as long as you get more successes than failures, you win. And now the interesting thing about about our dice systems is that we don't just have to put successes and failures on there. Because they're symbols, they're not numbers. If you tried to do too much with, like, a 5 is a success with a funny hat, and a 6 is a success that's critical, and a 7 is a success but you get tired. I think people, you do too much of that and it starts getting overly complicated. But with symbols, you can establish what the symbols are, and the players just learn to do visual recognition. This cancels this, and we know what these mean. Right. In a nutshell, what it's let us do with Star Wars is you're trying to get successes over failures, but you're also trying to get more advantages over disadvantages, which are a different symbol. So you actually get, instead of succeeding or failing, you have 4 directions. You can succeed with advantage, succeed with threats, fail with advantages, or fail with threats. And that means you have 4 different outcomes you can do. And actually, since there's critical successes or critical failures, there's technically more than that, although critical successes and failures could just be seen as extreme versions of what we've already mentioned.
Yeah. I think it's cool because it adds an extra storytelling element, or a narrative element to what happens there, and gives sort of the players and the GM sort of cues to sort of ways they can additionally describe the scene that just occurred, right?
No,
exactly. Yeah,
really cool. I think it's neat. I think it's a really interesting system, but it basically comes down to what's kind of neat about all these systems. Really, the takeaway here is because you go into character creation, what you really need to kind of identify is this a game where your stats are dictating the number of dice you roll, or is this a game where the stats are adding to the dice you roll? Because basically that's really the core of the two things we're talking about here, right? Either you're getting a bigger dice pool, which you usually want more dice in most of these systems, or you're trying to get a higher modifier to your die roll so that you're going to beat your target numbers, right?
And that's it exactly.
That's pretty much all of it.
Yeah, there are some RPG systems out there that get really fancy and do odd things with that and stuff, but in general, most of the role-playing games I think people are going to run into fall into one of those two categories.
All right, so now you know what you're looking for, and you get into your character creation. So, Craig, you want to take a little
favorites?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, like, do you guys have is there a dice mechanic that you like better than the others, or that you feel is superior, or is they just each have strengths and weaknesses?
Well, after you, Tim.
That's a really good question. I mean, a lot of times when I'm playing a game, it's the setting that really makes it most appealing. But I got to say, I have really fallen in love with the Star Wars dice system. It's just fun actually rolling the dice and then figuring out, okay, well, we got this. How does that contribute to the story? Where, based on these results, where do we take it from here? What just happened narratively? And you just get a lot of data to use to generate that answer. So I quite like that.
Sam?
Well, I honestly like most of the dice symbols. I mean, I've still got I still play in D20 games on occasion and everything like that. I have over the last few years developed a liking for dice pool systems in general. Just there's something satisfying about the concept of using your stats to make a bigger pool and then rolling all those dice. Maybe it's because I also play Warhammer 40K.
Yes, the more dice you roll, the better.
Exactly. But the Star Wars system is something that I'm really liking right now, and I don't think it's just because that's what I'm working on right now. But it's pretty much what Tim said. The whole being able to really work the narrative element into the dice rolling is something that I haven't got a lot of chance to do before, and it's been a lot of fun to run. And I know that makes me sound like a shill, right? But
I get it. let me ask you this: Do you ever, when you're when you're building an RPG, do you ever think about based, because this is something I thought was sort of interesting about RPG design, because Tim, you mentioned the background really influences the kind of RPGs you enjoy, right? So if you're really in the mood to be in Dresden's universe, you're going to play the Harry Dresden RPG. If you're really in the mood to be in Star Wars, you're going to play, that one. But I guess really when you're designing these things, do you ever look and go, okay, this game, this background really calls for this style of mechanic, or do we all kind of think it's interchangeable and we could put the percentile system in a Star Wars game and it wouldn't really break it? You know what I mean?
No, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the answer to that is yes. No, I think both. I think it works in both cases. I think there are systems that can sort of translate across a lot of different settings. I mean, look at all the different things that the D20 system has done, right? And some systems are like the fudge dice and so forth are so open that you could theoretically do almost anything with it. But at the same time, I do feel like some settings call more for some types of dice systems than others. With Star Wars, for an example, I think a setting that's so cinematic and got that swashbuckling, high adventure, sort of feel to it. I feel like if there was a setting that required too much calculation or too much math, not to say that math is a bad thing, but too much of any of that, I think that would detract from the fast and loose, high adventure type of tone that Star Wars, I think, works best at.
Okay. All right.
Tim, you got anything to add to that?
No, I was going to say that pretty much sums it up. I mean, some games want to be a bit more high adventure and moving at a good pace. And other games, let's crunch it out a bit. So I think it does depend on the background a little bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to follow up. Is basically because one of the big things, and maybe before we get into, I wanted to talk about this a little bit too, is a lot of people when they talk about an RPG, they talk about it either being very crunchy or rules intensive or very combat focused, if you will, right? Or they might talk about it as being, its rules are more focused on role playing, which usually when I hear that immediately in my head, I think, okay, the combat system is very, there's no need for a battle board. The combat system is obviously it's very much you just describe a scene and deal with it. There's not any worry about, okay, I'm to the guy's left flank 3 squares away or anything like that, right? So,
right.
And I would guess, and I think Tim, the point you're making is really good, which is certain things are going to certain properties are going to maybe want to feel more like one or the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Star Wars should be big cinematic adventure, like Sam said. That's what it's all about, and that's a system that moves things along at a good clip. Really helps there.
Yep.
What do you want to touch on 40K in that system as well?
I think 40K, the percentile system works great because there's all sorts of modifiers to things. Like Sam said, it gives you a lot of granularity to play with. And if there was a way we could make it such that not just 2 dice, you're going to roll 20 dice. I mean, that's what 40K is all about, really, rolling tons of dice.
Right.
And plus, it does give you, with rolling 2 dice, you get a nice side mechanic, since essentially you're generating 2 different numbers when you roll the dice that you can use later on to talk about degrees of success and failure.
And it also lets you play around with the whole critical injury aspect of 40K, which I feel like is one of the things that really sets the tone on it, right?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's the first thing everyone. I remember when 40K came out, that everyone commented about Dark Heresy was just oh my gosh, have you seen the critical tables? I mean that's the hallmark of 40K roleplay line.
Russ experienced the critical table firsthand several times.
Oh yes, and I died spectacularly too. The
entrails, getting tangled in entrails.
Oh, yeah.
It was great fun.
The death scenes are awesome.
Turning your opponent's heads into shrapnel grenades.
Oh yeah, good stuff. All right, so let's get into the character creation then too. We should talk about that a little bit. So there's a lot of different ways you can create your characters, and there's been some really interesting sort of innovations in this lately. But I guess how it all started really, or one of the earliest ways, was the random characteristic generation, right? Which was the classic D&D roll 3d6, once for each of your stats, and if your DM's really nice, he'll let you pick where they go, but maybe not. Oh, you got a 3 intelligence
for the GM that night,
right? And then of course there's. I'll just list a couple different options we can talk about. Maybe what we like best. The other common, and then of course D&D evolved to have this, and a lot of the systems do this as well, with the point system, where you're going to actually purchase have a pool of points you can spend on your statistics, so it's not random at all, and rather the player gets to design the kind of character that he or she wants to play. What are your guys' feelings on that? First of all, just the idea of do you want it to be purely random? Do you want it to be purely points? Do you like a little mix? What do you personally like in your games?
After you, Tim.
I actually like random. I like random with some sort of modifiers, depending on maybe your background or other attributes like that may kick in as well. But I like random. And then just, if I've got a really bad character, then let's see what I can do with them. Because I'd rather. I think it's almost more challenging to play a really bad character too. It's a lot more fun role playing someone who is not that good. So I'm all in favor of that.
Now, do you like it when it's random? Because some systems have random, but you pick your class first, if you will, and then your stats are randomly generated based on your class, so you can be what you want to be, but you may not be as good as you'd hope in certain areas. Or you have the original D&D model where you roll your stats first, and if you didn't make the minimum constitution requirements for this class, you can't play it. Which would you rather?
I tend to favor the ones where you sort of like, because I do like having some desire going in. I want to play this kind of guy.
Right.
And then, okay, well, let's see what kind of guy he turns out to be, how good he is at that. That's my personal preference.
All right. Sam, what about you?
Well, I got to... and I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think either system is superior or inferior to the other, but I actually fall down on the opposite end of the scope. I really like point buy, I think it's been just because usually when I'm making a character, I come up with a character concept ahead of time, and then I say, all right, I want to play the surly Cadoran sniper, or I want to play the paladin who's sort of like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. And then if the dice aren't going to let me do that, then I actually start feeling a little resentful, and or at least I feel like I'm not getting to do what I wanted to do out of the game. Now, that being said, I also recognize one of the biggest problems with the point buy system is that it doesn't put you out of your comfort zone. Like Tim was talking about, if you do generate your stats randomly, you might end up playing something you never expected to play before, and suddenly you might find that you like something you never thought you liked before. So I definitely think that there are some. I definitely think even though I like point buy overall more, there's something I do enjoy about random in that forcing you to try something new aspect.
Yeah. How about you, Craig? What do you think of the two different systems, or do you like a third?
No. It's interesting that you should say that. I really like the point buy system because, as Sam said, I kind of get an idea in my head of who I want to be and what I want to be, and then I also get resentful if the game gets in the way of doing that, and I don't play enough to really want to leverage or get a lot of enjoyment out of not being able to do what I want to do. So although the point buy system doesn't get you out of your comfort zone, I don't get a chance to play often enough that I'm going to play through that difficulty and get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I think I'd rather kind of, get that character where I want him from the beginning and really enjoy it. One thing to take the point buy system with a twist, if you will, I really enjoy what's come up lately with a bunch of different systems, which is that complication, challenge, obligation purchase that allows you to get a little more stuff for your guy as far as his stats and skills goes, but it comes with a cost. And I love the way that works, because what you're doing is you're basically taking a weakness for your character that you sort of make your own and build that into who you are, and that then drives your narrative. It gives you sort of a framework to build the, I'm not just the paladin and everything in my life is great. You've got something that you're working against outside of whatever bad guys are put in your path. And I like that, both for the ability to tailor your character a little more, give them a little more bumps here or there, but it also gives you some sort of challenge to work against in your role playing, which I really, really like.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I mean, it's good. It obviously gives you some numbers, but it also gives your character some more flavor.
Yeah, anytime you can offer the players benefits now for drawbacks later, I think that makes for interesting storytelling.
Yeah, I think the key there is the GM has to watch that and make them pay for that. Because a lot of times,
yes, absolutely.
A lot of times the player will be like, look how many build points I get for being in a wheelchair. I'm a hacker, and I'm going to be in a wheelchair, and I'm going to be the best hacker on the planet, right? And it's like, fine, but now the villain just ran under the stairs. What do you do? Right? You need to make those scenarios so that they pay for that. Otherwise, it's just a min-max system.
You build superheroes real easily,
right?
And if your GM exactly isn't aware, on top of it, then you can. It's like any system where, in this particular system, everybody hates this one type of race. So if you are that type of race, then everybody's going to hate you. But you can do that if you want, because it all comes with all kinds of bonuses. Then if you take that race and you've got more power than anybody else, but the GM doesn't play up that whole racism element where everybody hates you, then you're going to get resentment from all the other players, which I think is a challenge. But going back to that element of getting out of your comfort zone, I think those complications, obligations are a great way to do that, because you get to choose it, but it gives you this challenge. When we played Serenity, our friend Joe, played an engineer. He was awesome at engineering. He was also all that kind of stuff. He was also he was a Lothario. He was always hitting up on the women. He was a little person. So he was 4 feet tall, and Casanunda, for anybody who's a big fan of the Discworld, and it was a great little character, no pun intended, that he had created, because that's a major complication that you're a tiny little person, but it was a lot of fun.
It sounds like he was playing Peter Dinklage before Peter Dinklage ever got a chance to play Tyrion.
I believe his character was based on a Peter Dinklage character from a TV show from about 5 years ago. The name escapes me, but I think it was definitely Peter Dinklage that he was basing it on.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Well, I approve of that.
What about ways to handle racial / species bonuses? Like, do you like them to sort of add, because there's different ways games handle it, right? One of them is it just adds some abilities, modifies some stats. Other systems that will make it your starting stats are based on your race or your species, right? And then still other ones, it'll impact your maximum stats. Do you have a preference how those work? Do you like to see a lot of species modifications to the characters? Do you feel like it makes humans look dorky? I mean, how do you feel about that? How those systems all work?
Well, I think actually that's kind of interesting because just to touch back to work for a second, one of the things we were doing with the Star Wars role-playing game was that beta test we put on that we wrapped up back in December. And one of the things that actually came up was our species in Star Wars originally were very no frills. And they gave you some basic abilities, but not a whole lot beyond that. And one of the pieces of feedback we got from a lot of people was they wanted their species to have more unique bits. So we ended up actually adding in more I would say random, but very rules that were sometimes kind of oddball. The Gand got the ability to take rebreathers, and they could, breathe. If they breathed oxygen, they could die horribly, but they got extra experience for it. Or they could be the variant who doesn't need to breathe at all, and they got less experience, but then they don't have to breathe, which is convenient. So I don't know. I think there's a middle ground there. I think you don't want to overcomplicate the species so much that they have all these abilities that they have to keep track of, and they don't get to, and the player is thinking too much about the species he's playing and not enough about his character, or he just forgets abilities because there's too many to keep track of. But you need some of that, I think. You definitely need something.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time you're playing that species because you probably think they're cool. So you want something to make it more than just a human wearing a face mask.
Mm.
Right.
One thing that jumps into mind is is in 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. They have the second wind mechanic, and where everybody can spend their action taking their second wind and recovering hit points.
Right. But
But then the dwarves have a mechanic that they can take their second wind as a movement minor action. That's
right.
it, and so they can basically do it faster than everyone else can, and they can still do stuff on their turn. And it's a simple sort of mechanic, but it actually I think it really encompasses that the dwarves are a little tougher and a little have better endurance than everyone else.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great system too, and I like the abilities. I liked what the Iron Kingdoms RPG did, which I thought was kind of neat, is that it kind of goes back to your random versus point system. So it's a point system game, but your starting stats are all based on the race you choose. So if you choose a strong race like a Trollkin, your starting strength is much higher than the starting strength of a human, but your other stats are lower, and then you're going to spend points to increase your stats. So basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm going to start with baseline, these guys are on average, this faction's on average stronger. You can make a human as strong as a Trollkin, but it's going to take you all your points to do that, and you're going to be a very one-dimensional human. So it's kind of neat how by doing that, you're going to have sort of racially, leaning characteristics, which is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about, I think, Craig, do you want to do combat next? What do you think?
I think combat is a huge thing to do. Yes, let's do combat.
Do people really want that in role-playing games, though? I mean, come on.
Okay, let's just do this right. Let's just get this on the table, pardon the pun, right now. Should there be a battle surface on your table with stuff on it marking where everybody is? Tim, go.
Yes. Not all the time, but yes.
Your preferred way. Sam, how about you?
Oh man, I go back and forth. These days, no. 2 months ago, yes. 2 months from now, maybe yes again.
Craig?
The great sine wave of an answer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, I really enjoy seeing the visual of a good, even if it's just a hex map that you're drawing with dry erase or wet erase, preferably, marker on it. I really enjoy being able to visualize the position of everybody very easily and clearly. At the same time, I don't want to go all the way in the direction of just playing it out as a miniatures game, which I feel D&D 4th edition does.
Right.
So I kind of like the narrative element to be open, but I like there to be that visual cue that I can use to keep in my head where everybody is and what the relationship is towards everybody.
Yeah, I've been. It's funny because when I used to play D&D, like I don't know, 1st edition, 2nd edition, and even back then, before there were battle mats and everything else, we used to lay out paper and draw where everybody was, because otherwise we get in the situation where, like, I stab him. Wait, how do you stab him? You're 20 feet away. You just shot your bow. No. I said I ran up, but you didn't hear me. I ran up to him 2 turns ago. You get in this big argument all of a sudden about where everybody is relative to everybody else, and it just saves a lot of time. Even with just a white, as Craig described, with a white sheet of paper and a few X's on it. You're here, the orcs are over here. Here's the tree, and before you know it, you might as well have a dry erase board or one of those rollout mats with something on it, and then pretty much. Then if you're a miniature gamer, you've got the models over there on the wall anyway. Might as well use those. And before you know it,
I think you pegged it. I mean, we're all miniatures gamers, so it's fun putting down some models.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's a good point, actually.
So, yeah.
I think also it depends on how big a group you're playing with. The more people you've got, the more it's really useful to have that visual aid, because
that's very true.
Yeah, that's true.
And then as Craig pointed out, there's going to be RPGs that are more designed around the need for the battlefield and have whole sections of the book committed to that. Of course, you could play without it, but they're obviously designed to have it. And 4th edition D&D is one of those. Obviously, Iron Kingdom's RPG is clearly meant to be War Machine, the RPG, so obviously they're going there. And there are other games too that do that more or less. I think it's sort of interesting. You get some hybrids too. I thought it was interesting how Warhammer Fantasy Battles did it, where your exact position was sort of abstracted, right? You were sort of near, far away, or close, and then you just sort of remembered where you were roughly, as opposed to having slide around them and all that stuff, which I thought was neat. But it's interesting because there are definite, very, very strong. It's almost like a religious war at some RPG groups. Some people say, remember I mentioned earlier the whole idea that this game is designed more for role playing, and a lot of times when they say that, they mean you don't need a table, with stuff on it. And it's funny because someone just did a really cool table, D&D table up on the internet. They do everything on the internet, where it was a 2-tier table. So this table was like lifted up above the other table, and that table was designed to be your battlefield. And then below it, there were lights shining down, and all your character sheets were under it. So you kind of sat and you could look up into the table. I thought it was a really cool idea. And so I posted this on our Facebook page. Check this out. And this guy's like, real role players don't need a battlefield. I'm like, oh, come on, really? So there's definitely a groups of people who think I personally like them both. I've played both ways before. I like the battlefield though, but it's sort of interesting.
I think it's an interesting thing where he says he doesn't need it, and that's maybe true, but I think it's just more fun that way. Yeah, you might not need it, but it's fun again. And it may be because I'm a miniature gamer. I like putting down some figures. It's fun.
Well, no, absolutely, and I think one thing that's sometimes we're all nerds. We all get excited about our the stuff we identify with and everything. But I think it's always important to remember that when it comes to role playing, it doesn't matter what system you're using, really. At least as far as the role playing goes, because that's entirely just dependent on the creativity of the group and how much the group dynamics and how much fun the players are willing to have and everything. So you can do role playing with pretty much any system, including rock paper scissors or something. I don't feel like one system is going to have less role playing than another. It's just the systems facilitate the game you're playing alongside the role playing in different ways.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. I think yeah, exactly right. True dat.
Now,
Perfect.
I'm curious. We should have had somehow some role player who never played a miniatures game on here too, and get their point of view, because I'm wondering if that is coloring our desire to put those models on there.
That would be an interesting point.
That'd be a very good point, because I remember way back when I first started role playing, which was before I got into miniatures. I don't remember if we put down miniatures at all. So yeah.
And I started minis gamings before I actually did role playing, so that's always been part of it, sort of in my head.
Yeah, I didn't actually. I role played first, and I had the very early TSR. There was a blue box, an orange box, and a green box of here. They were lead. They were actual lead. People, don't try this at home. Lead miniatures, and there was a heroes box and a monster box, and they're all lead figures. You painted them, and there were no rules in D&D back then for like inches or anything. It was just you put these guys on the table to represent where you were. And I just thought that was awesome, because we used to get those arguments about where everybody was standing, and so it was kind of cool. And then we went to the model railroading store. So I started actually modeling from the RPG side, and then when I discovered there were these games that actually had combat rules in them, I was like, and then they came up with like the battlefield system for D&D a while ago, way back when they made an actual war game out of it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So for me, it was a natural progression. But I know there's people that have grown up that have never used miniatures, and it's interesting.
Well, it was interesting when we played the Star Wars, the Edge of the Empire beginner game a couple weeks ago. That the Star Wars is the same as the fantasy Warhammer Fantasy, basically, where you've got sort of abstracted ranges and it's sort of narrative, and it takes 2 times to get from far away to medium range and stuff like that. And it was funny because as we progressed along the little mini campaign that it comes with, we had a big gunfight out in the street, and I had the street map that it comes with. It comes with all kinds of cool little maps. We had the street map set up when we were using just the tokens to basically show where everybody was. And by the end of the evening, there's a big a big battle that takes place on a landing pad with a Millennium Falcon-like ship. And all of us went over to Myriad Games, of course, has all these collectible Star Wars minis, but they're in clear boxes, so you get what you want to buy. And I bought 3 of those cubes, and everybody had their characters in miniatures on that map by the time we were finished.
Oh, perfect.
I was like, oh, damn, I need 2 more security droids.
Yeah, see all that
thing to watch that progression just in that one evening session from. Here are the cardboard tokens, just to basically tell you. I mean, we did that. I love the mission or the little mini campaign that comes with the beginning game, because it's in a not Mos Eisley cantina, and then the not Mos Eisley spaceport fighting not Millennium Falcon.
Nice.
Well, at least this Millennium Falcon is crewed by a really ugly Trandoshan.
That's very true. Yes. Who unfortunately succumbed to getting shot in the back with some sort of electrical weapon. I'm not even sure what it was. But yeah, it was very neat to watch that. And I think it was Bosk. I got the Bosk miniature somehow.
Oh, perfect.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very interesting that we started with chits and we ended the evening with miniatures, because that's where all of us really wanted it to go for that last dramatic big battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think, yeah. Well, and again, we're all miniature gamers, so that probably has something to do with it. So one last, I know we're running long, but I wanted to squeeze one more topic in here before we run out of time, and that is, I call this category "Make Me a Hero." So the first time I saw this concept or mechanic was actually in an old school game called Top Secret, and in Top Secret, it was a role playing game where you played a not James Bond like secret agent, and they had this concept. I think they were called hero points. And you could spend hero points. It was a way that players, it was the first time I'd ever seen this, players could change the story without really the DM's permission. Because you could spend a hero point and say, for example, your agent's about to be drowned in the bathtub. And you don't have your gun, and the guy's about to drown you. And you say, I'm going to spend a hero point and say that I was repairing the toilet earlier and there's a monkey wrench on the floor near the bathtub. So, like in James Bond, he reaches out and there's always what he needs right there. And you can spend it and grab it and club the guy with it. And Jim's like, oh, that's a great use of your hero point. Okay, and you get the guy and you get away. And since then, lots of games have sort of added this idea in here. And they're called sometimes plot points or fate points. And Iron Kingdom's RPG calls them feat points. And they're basically a point system that players can use to sort of either, if not break the rules outright, then at least increase their odds immensely of trying to pull off an amazing heroic deed, or something to get out of that situation and prove that they're really the hero of the story and not just a random NPC walking down the street getting shot randomly. What do you guys think of that mechanic? Do you like that element in RPGs? Do you not like it? What do you think?
After you, Tim.
I was to say I like them. I think it's one of those things that has to be done. I think I like it. I like it in a game. It's got to be really finely balanced and done judiciously. I mean, it's tricky because if it goes too high, you essentially wind up with totally impervious players who can basically, no matter what's going on, I just found, there's the clue I really needed. Or there's the diamond that's been missing. Right. And the story's not a story anymore. It's more like fan fiction. Mm-hmm. Nothing against fan fiction. That can be good too. No, I think I enjoyed it in a game, bottom line.
And I pretty much fall on the same side with Tim. I feel like it depends on the game always, but as long as the game is focused around the idea that the PCs are the heroes, or at least the protagonists, after watching movies and reading books and everything, we expect our protagonists to do heroic things when the chips are down. And any of these mechanics, I feel like, are a great way to sort of guarantee it. And it does. And I think the best mechanics are the ones that aren't just an I win button, but they're good, I can tilt the odds that much more in my favor because I've been saving this all game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the ones that can kind of make it that one shot you're going to take now. It's like the bad guy's about to get away, he's fleeing, he's getting away. You've got your rifle, you got that one shot. And can I spend and I like the games where it's a very focused ability. It's not just like I'm going to spend it and the GM now has to decide, because in the old days, like with Top Secret, it was sort of just this sort of amorphous, I'm going to spend it and you should give me something of value back, GM, kind of thing. I like them now where it's like the Iron Kingdoms RPG boosts your shot. So basically you get an extra die in your pool. So you know exactly the odds are going to help, but you've saved it for that moment, and so you're really going to help that shot happen or whatever it's going to be. And I like that kind of mechanic a lot. And I think it gives you that hero that one more heroic chance. It gives you that one last chance to get out of jail free card kind of thing.
Yeah, like you said, it lets heroes be heroic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Craig, what do you think?
I love it. I agree that you don't want to make it too powerful, so it sort of breaks the game, and it's just a question of. I love the fan fiction euphemism, but at the same time, I love that chance that you could either hoard it, and then for that one awesome shot that really is going to be the game winner, or maybe when you're about to get shot, you need something to save you at the last minute. But it really, my first experience was with the Serenity system, and I really enjoyed that element of we're special because we have this chance that nobody else in the game is going to have of being successful when it really counts. And I really think that kind of mechanic kind of steps the game up and makes you, like Sam said, you're the protagonist, you're the central characters. And so even when it looks like the chips are down and the spaceship's going to crash and there's no way you're going to get away from that last TIE fighter, there's that one moment where you're going to be able to just do this crazy thing and get out of there.
Yeah.
Big darn heroes.
Yeah, big darn. Yeah, and I like it too. And I also like how they do it, because I think Serenity has this too, but I know in Iron Kingdoms they have this where you certain Uber NPC bad guys can also have like one or two of them. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, the characters go along and doing it, all of a sudden they do it to someone else, and all of a sudden, wait, that guy he's a hero too? Yeah. Oh no. And so he becomes, you can sort of create like
so
a nemesis.
Fast, Mr. Bond.
Right. And all of a sudden there's a nemesis out there, right? And I just think it's a really nice next level thing you can do.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in the same thing, because I think I really like that. I remember the first time I was playing Dark Heresy, and that was before I was even working on role-playing games at all. And the first time we ran into a particularly bad villain who he makes an attack and misses, and the GM's like, all right, I spent a fate point to reroll it, and we're all like, wait, he doesn't get fate points.
Yeah, only we get fate points, right?
Right.
And the GM just gets this big grin on his face.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's awesome. So yeah, I think they're a really great addition to the RPG stable of cool mechanics to use. Well, great. Well, unfortunately, we're running a little long, so I think we'll have to wrap the rest of these topics up for next time, Craig.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff to wrap up for next time.
There's always more Mulling Mechanics. Yeah. Well, Tim and Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show today and fill our third chair with all your butt cheeks. Appreciate it.
It was absolutely a pleasure.
Yes.
Just next time, just get a bigger chair, right?
Bigger chair next time. Other than that, though, yes.
So
this was fun.
If folks want to check out the latest RPG stuff you guys are working on, where can they go to see all that good stuff?
Best place to go is visit our website, fantasyflightgames.com.
Yes.
Awesome. We're looking forward to
these are the guys behind the stuff you're looking at.
Exactly. All that Star Wars RPG and 40K RPG stuff and even, Relic and whatnot, they're there somewhere back there in the back. If they have a picture of
way
painted,
back machine.
So Tim, are your painted Relic dudes on the website?
Oh Lord, no. No. No, they're proudly on my desk, and that's about as far as they're going to get, I think. But
yeah.
No,
they're still on your desk.
Yeah.
Dare to true. I thought you were the guy. I think you were a guy. They sell those pre-painted dust models and stuff. I thought that was you back there painting those up. No.
No.
Just check it. Well, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. Keep up the great work at Fantasy Flight. We're always looking forward to what you guys are putting out. Great games all the time.
Well,
thanks, guys.
You're listening to the D6 generation. More to game.
Well, it's time to talk about Geek Nation tours. Gen Con's getting close, Craig. All this whole sign up for this and buy your badge for that. And have you reserved events yet in hotel space and all that stuff? You know what?
That's the thing that kills you is those hotels.
Right, or you can just get everything taken care of for you by Geek Nation Tours. That's the thing about this. That's awesome. So and they have the fantastic Gen Con tour, which I'm excited about because not only are we going to be there at the welcome dinner, Tom and Eric from the Dice Tower are going to be there at the welcome dinner. You got who knows who from the various, Ross Watson, other people from the industry at the welcome dinner. And these welcome dinners are very, intimate, small group. Get to meet everybody, get to say hi to them. It's not like a giant mob. And they get you down there for the entire convention like a Gen Con. It's going to be crazy. They're going to have room for... we're going out to hang out with the Kentucky Fried Gamers. There's going to be the Star Wars exhibits going on there. You get to fly the Millennium Falcon or some kind of crazy Millennium Falcon experience thing, which is crazy.
There's some Millennium Falcon involved.
There is, of some kind. And then what's this business with Ross Watson and an RPG or some nonsense?
Well, that's just crazy talk because Ross Watson, of course, RPGs are his thing, and Star Wars is one of the big things that he's been involved with, and he is actually going to run an RPG session using the new FFG Star Wars rules, and you can be a part of it.
Exactly right. So, I don't know how you can pass on this thing. If you're going to go on a Gen Con and, especially if you're out of country, you got a long way to travel, you're not familiar with the area, Geek Nation Tours will make sure you have the best possible experience, not only with Gen Con and everything around in Indianapolis is cool for geeks to do, but also experiences like Ross Watson and Star Wars that you can't do anywhere else. And let's say you're not going to Gen Con. This is the kind of experiences that Terrace and Geek Nation Tours sets up for everyone at every single one of their tours. Whether it's
their tours,
Star Trek convention, PAX East, you name it, whatever they're doing, they're there, they're doing it, they're making it happen. Check out their site, go to Geek Nation Tours, click on upcoming tours, and pick your favorite tour and check it out. And by the way, don't forget, if you do sign up, make sure you tell them the D6G sent you, and they will hook you up with a stitched official. We will hook you up through Terrace with official stitched D6G patch. Just to let everybody know that you are a person of distinction and fine breeding.
Slap that baby right on your gaming bag or your backpack or your big giant strolling carry-on that you carry through cons so that I trip over you.
Exactly. GeekNationTours.com.
This Gem Notice is brought to you by MungeeStudios.com. Ever wondered what it would be like to go to a school for the magically gifted? Russ has. Well, now you can. To find out more, head over to www.munjistudios.com and check out their new game, Alchemist Academy, coming to Kickstarter soon. That's www.munjistudios.com. You ever notice how sometimes people can all of a sudden have doubts about who they are or what they're all about. I have those every now and then, and had them recently, about gaming, oddly enough, considering, this whole podcast thing. And I do, like I said, I have them fairly regularly, where all of a sudden I'll be like, am I really a gamer? Is that how I feel? 'Cause I don't like certain things, and I don't know, and that makes me wonder and doubt, and everybody's like, hey, we're gonna play this game, and hey, we're gonna play that game, and hey, we're gonna play the other game, and I'm like, nah. And that's what happened to me this past Tuesday. I was running a little bit late, not a lot late, a little bit late, and I had one of those moments where everything just didn't line up, and I got there 15 minutes late, and not only had everybody gone to have dinner, but they'd gone and come back, so that kind of stunk. And I had set up for a game, Game of Infinity with Dave from the Nerd Herders podcast, and I walked in to see him setting up a Game of Infinity with Will, and I was like, oh, seriously, man, dude, what's going on? And then everybody's like, hey, we're going to play this game. It's about invading Canada in 1812, and it's got a bunch of wooden cubes. And I'm like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. No, thank you. I know. And then there's like Magic the Gathering was being played, and I was just looking around, and there was I think the Factory Manager was over in the corner, and I'm just looking around going, I don't get it. Maybe I'm not a gamer. And then I had this, this doubt about the whole situation. And I went and I left, and I had dinner by myself, sitting in my car, listening to an audiobook, which was darn good. And little Caliban's War action. And then I came back, and they had just finished their Infinity game. 1812 was still going strong. And so Dave and I played Infinity, and you've already heard how that went. It did not go well. So it was just like... And it had been a rough day at school. It had been a workshop day, and I got in the middle of a big giant fight that I was on neither side of, but two people were talking about, one of those taboo subjects, and they both just started ripping into each other in this little tiny committee meeting. And I was just like, please, we all just get along, and it was just brutal. Then I had to fight about this new concept that they've got where every final for every teacher has to be exactly the same, and clearly they're not worried about cheating, I guess. And so we all have to now agree, like, what are all of our finals going to look like? Because they're going to fight. So I had to fight the good fight there. So it was just a bad day. And then I went and had this big gaming thing, and it was just no fun. And so I went home going like, gee, I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. And I was nervous. I was a little nervous because, if I'm not a gamer, what am I? I have no idea. So I went home, and everything was fine, and I watched some TV and hung out with Karen, and then of course we had PattyCon was Saturday, and so that's like a lot of work working up to it because cleaning, that's ridiculous and ugly, and the pub is like ground zero for any terrain project I want to work on or any army project. So whenever I'm working, this room just becomes a disaster area. So you got to clean all that up. But then, and then, you're the host, so like, are you going to play games? And what kind of games are you going to play? And on Saturday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to play the games I like. I'm going to play with the people that I like, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to worry about it. And so I started the evening off with Spartacus, and then when it just took off, I had a blast. I played all these games that I really, really like. I played Spartacus. I brought out Summoner Wars again. I brought out Small World again. And we just played all of these games that have been big hits over the last couple of years, many of which had kind of fallen by the wayside. And I had a blast. And I was like, yes, okay, good. I just I like certain games, and that's great. So it still leaves me a little ambivalent about Infinity, and that saddens me because I spent several $100s on models and terrain that I haven't even put together yet. But I'll give it another chance. I want to give it a chance and see what's going on with that. But yes, I am a gamer, and so I was very happy to realize that. And so just an hour ago, our Kickstarter for Wild West Exodus finished up, and it was a very fun and exciting time. And I didn't want to give anybody. I got a couple of responses that made it seem as if my words had been interpreted that I was nervous for the Kickstarter, which is kind of crazy because because Romeo had put so much of his own money up front. The actual goal was relatively low because we just needed that much money to just kind of kick us over into that sort of generational budgetary system or situation. And so there was no worry about that. I mean, and for a mini game, over 300,000 was pretty darn good. Over 1,000 people, that was fantastic. But there's always that, why couldn't it have broken 400,000 or 500,000 or why couldn't it have been one of those millions? And it started me thinking about losing, because we didn't lose. We won. It was huge. It was awesome. We're all excited. But there's that, why didn't we? And it's interesting because I was on there, like I said, on those comments every day, reading all the comments. And all these people are like, we're going to do it. You just wait and see. It's going to pump up. We're going to get to 400,000 easy. And everybody was buying into it. And it reminded me of losing when you're talking about like something like big and social, like the Super Bowl or an election, or when your side is not the winning side, when it's not winning. Like, just all of these theories start coming out and everybody's like, yeah, no, it's going to be great. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And then, like, you come close, and yet at the same time you're like, but we didn't do it because none of these wildly improbable theories came to pass. Like, but any football team that's on the 38-yard line in the second quarter and blah, 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 yada, yada, never lost a game and blah, blah. And it's like, it didn't work. And that's kind of, for a second, how it felt when we were like, watching at the last second. And it was interesting because there were people, dropping and jumping in and dropping and jumping in. And, as they adjusted their pledges and stuff. So it was very, very neat being kind of like not a little bit on the other side. I mean, I don't really know much of what was going on, believe me. And I was as confused as the next guy for most of it. But it was neat kind of like being invested that way anyway. So anyway, it got me to thinking about losing, which is good because, I do that a lot. And I think that a lot of it is psychological. And that's pretty much all I got. So it's all about me being a gamer. Huzzah! And losing stinks, but it doesn't usually stink as much as we think it does. But I think psychologically we make it worse. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for this episode. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA Discussions Forum on DACADACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Sarah Kerrigan used to be the queen of blades, but she has changed. Or maybe deep beneath the surface, she's the same as in the previous game. Does Zerga, Bean and Kane, they yearn for these terrains, observe the teaser trailer. Deep relationships are complicated, e.g. Sarah's thing with Raina. See, she doesn't know what makes sense. She loves him as much as she hates Megs, but James has a sense that the craving for vengeance has tended to take some great lengths. It'll take strength to face. So I suggest to defend your base. Cause the Sarah Kerrigan is never getting better than a terror, evidently better get together with a barren method of repelling her. I'm telling ya, any and every hellion better be leveling and getting heavier. Nefarious, told Valerian, his dad's life expectancy is desperately precarious, and he better be aware of this.
Once you've been the killer queen, the wings of liberty are nothing but a means to give your enemies some misery. Once you've been the killer queen, the wings of liberty are nothing but a means to give your enemies some misery.
Be warned, in the heart of the swarm lies evil.
The heart of the swarm.
Be warned, in the heart of the swarm lies evil.
The heart of the swarm.
#1 universal